Let's do it.
Let's go. All right. It says we're live. We may be live. I should really make an established intro after all these years. You know, given that it's podcast episode 250, and there's still not a dedicated intro. It's just awkward entry. Is it working? Mic test. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Let me know how everything is looking and sounding. That's not jest. I actually do mean that. Please let me know how everything is looking and sounding. But yes, this is a Nintendo podcast. We usually do Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we have a returning guest from a while back, good friend, Cameron from GameBird Classic. His channel is linked in the description below. And I brought him here today because he's a big Zelda fan, as are we. And some of you may not be aware, but I have a sneaking suspicion that pretty much all of you are, that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is releasing this Friday, a game we've been waiting more than 6 years for, the longest wait between major Zeldas ever, and this might just be the biggest, best one yet. But with that all said, Cameron, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing phenomenal. It's really good to be back. Thanks for having me on today. Friday, Tears of the Kingdom. It's coming. My body's ready. Your body's ready. Everyone's body is ready. This is the event of the generation. Yeah. So I'm glad to be here. Excited to be talking Zelda, and it's going to be a good show.
100%. And you know, there's another body that's ready that I haven't name dropped yet. Cool. And that's Brandon. That's Brandon. I haven't name dropped him. He is the co-host here. He is my good friend as well.
Sir.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, but I don't know if my body is ready because I literally just got the DLC for Xenoblade downloaded. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to beat this DLC before Zelda comes out. But I will try. I'll probably get like maybe halfway through at best.
I've been trying to get through it myself. If you look carefully, you can see that I'm trying to play it. I've been trying to play it. Yeah,
I hear it's phenomenal. I haven't played it myself, but I've heard nothing but amazing things.
It's a phenom, all right. It's pretty darn good. So, who was it? A few of you, Skyward Swords, Elisa, Paul, Duna, both have said everything looks and sounds great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Daniel Clinton, why is Brandon never on camera? We just talked about it. His body is not ready.
My body's not ready for being on camera. First of all, there's like nothing to show in behind me, just like empty room and a couch back there. Secondly, webcams are expensive. And thirdly, lighting setups are less expensive, but they also cost money. So, you know, it's kind of like cost versus reward scenario at the moment.
You've sacrificed your physical form to be here tonight. You're Calamity Brandon, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
Calamity Brandon.
I've given up my physical form.
Or perhaps Brandon, if you watched my theory video yesterday, might be tied to a voice of the kingdom or a trapped soul by the Demon King that is Ganondorf, as you said.
Not a trapped soul.
Yeah, could be. Could be.
Oh,
you guys heard it first here. Just saying.
Help me. I'm gonna have to save myself come Friday.
Yeah. So we got, honestly, we got lots to talk about. I'm just gonna tell you guys my plans. Just talk about with you guys right now real quick. So I know some people are hoping that I hit 25K during the live stream. I ask that you don't sub with any alt accounts. I do not want that. I only want people who are legitimately going to watch. So just, you know, if you have alt accounts, just use your main account. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Please like the show. If you do support this channel, I'm just glad you support the channel. When we hit 25K, that'll be great. You know, I'm not a fan of, you know, boosting numbers when they're not really there, right? You ever seen a channel that has hundreds of thousands of subscribers and they get like 10 views? I don't want to be that, right? So I want proper, fair representation, and when it happens, it happens. Who knows? Maybe this live stream will go viral. I doubt it, but you know,
are close though.
I am close. There's a good chance it happens this week, so I feel pretty good about that. And on that note, I do want to kind of talk about the content plans going forward, because they are going to change. I can't guarantee that it'll stay like this forever. But the plan for this week is going to be intense. We are going to live, and this in part is a little bit of me sort of celebrating the 25K. I'm going to live stream every day. Today counts, but tomorrow we're doing the Breath of the Wild hype stream. Wednesday we're doing the Breath of the Wild hype stream. Thursday we're doing the final Breath of the Wild hype stream. We're gonna get everything we plan on getting done in Breath of the Wild, talking about Tears of the Kingdom. The Tears of the Kingdom hype stream is actually what it's called, but we're playing through Breath of the Wild. So Tuesday through Thursday, 3 more streams. We're gonna be streaming that, finishing up everything we plan to do for Breath of the Wild while talking about Tears of the Kingdom. And then Friday at night, we'll be streaming Tears of the Kingdom. I'm not going to do a midnight stream because I'm going to be playing it on my own, recording footage for a video that will be dropping Friday early in the day.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's why what I'm going to do is I plan on, we'll see how things go. I'm not going to guarantee that I'll stream the entirety of Tears of the Kingdom from beginning to end. It kind of depends. Honestly, like, it just really depends if you guys like it. If you guys like it, then I'll continue. If not, I'm going to put my efforts towards something else and play the game privately. But the plan is to have my own personal playthrough and then a live stream. So if I'm playing the game twice, I'm gonna make more discoveries, find out more things, and then get better at it. And the reason I want to get better at it is because while there's still going to be the typical theory discussion video you see as the main video every day, there are going to be tips videos for Tears of the Kingdom coming out almost daily as well. There'll be shorter little things. Those will come out later into the day. But that just to kind of give you an idea of the kind of the content pivot once Tears of the Kingdom releases. There's going to be a lot, and the Tears of the Kingdom theories will continue. Hint, hint, Friday, there is a theory video coming out about Tears of the Kingdom that requires that I play the game. I do not want to spoil anything. I have tried to avoid spoilers, but I have seen a little bit. I have this channel that talks about Zelda. People put spoilers in my comments all the time.
Yes.
So
inevitable.
So I do understand a little bit about the game, not a lot. And I'm not going to be. What it is not even going to be discussed at all in this live stream at all.
We would never.
Yeah. I will say this though, and I don't consider this a spoiler. Everything that people have said, journalists, media outlets, people that I know that are working on the game and all this stuff, and yes, some comments out there that have enjoyed the leaks. This game is amazing. That's all I'm going to say in terms of what people know. The
spoilers.
Right? This game is amazing.
You've ruined my experience.
And all it does, it validates our speculation about this game that we've had for years. With that said, I'm excited. I'm all in on this, and I'm ready to go. So before I check in with the chat, Cameron, how about you just kind of give me your general feelings on Tears of the Kingdom, and then Brandon, you the same. I'll go through the chat for a little bit, and then we'll start going topic by topic.
Cool. Yeah, so, man, I've been unbelievably excited for this game ever since it was first announced. I will say, like, I never had any doubt in my mind that this was going to be a masterclass Zelda game. But I was starting to, with some of the teases we were getting, felt like we were like missing something, that like little Zelda oomph. And I'm like, man, this game looks amazing. Even with that big gameplay demo that they did where they showed off the fuse mechanics, I was like, the amount of possibilities, the way that this is going to change the way you play was really cool, but still missing something. And when we got that final trailer that gave a lot of the story beats and kind of showed a more like grand scope of the adventure, that's when it really hit me. I was like, oh yeah, like I knew this was going to be a masterpiece game before, but this is that Zelda feeling trailer where the music hits all those different emotions, that sense of adventure and dread, and that trailer did it for me. And that's where I'm like, okay, hype train, full steam ahead. So I'm excited. There's a lot of stuff that I'm hoping for. There's things I've been asking for on the channel for this game. Kind of my hopes have been that this blends the new formula of Breath of the Wild with some of the old staples of Zelda, like dungeons and unique bosses and some cool items. A little bit more story than we got with Breath of the Wild, kind of a hybrid Breath of the Wild classic Zelda game. And I don't know, I got vibes of that in this latest and greatest trailer, and I'm really crossing my fingers that that's what this is. But my expectations are high. My hype is unbelievably high. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I kind of I'm with you. I mean, I know that they're double downing on the open air Zelda, so kind of moving in the Breath of the Wild direction.
Literally.
But I do think, yeah, they're literally going up and down. Like it's the footage is there. We know there's underground. How extensive, we'll see. But yeah, in terms of it being a hybrid, I do feel like they're revisiting other Zelda tropes, right? Like we've seen Redeads. There's more. Ganondorf is back. Like that Ganondorf being back. That says a lot, I think. So I think so. I mean, Nintendo's been so secretive about so much, but something that we've seen from the trailers, I feel like there's an even heavier. And I could be wrong, but it feels like there's a little bit more of a heavier emphasis on music this time around. And there's always an emphasis on music. Let me
tell
rephrase.
It's like trailers, right?
Right. Yes. But we did see like the preview. We did see the preview footage. On the preview footage, they had some nice ambient noise, the same way they did in Breath of the Wild. And maybe this is just my own kind of like belief with not a lot of evidence, but the sense I have is that they're going to be a little bit more bombastic, a little bit more in your face about it, just a little bit more. The ambient stuff is like from Breath of the Wild, that's still going to be there. We know that's still going to be there, but I feel like it is going to be perhaps a better blend. To your point, Cameron, I kind of feel like we're going to get that.
Yeah, and like, with the classic Zelda games, there's a lot of really cool story beats and story moments that I'm super nostalgic for across the whole series. Breath of the Wild's a little bit different. It's an anomaly for the series in that, like, the story's not really happening in the moment that you're playing. The story happened in the past, and you're kind of piecing together what happened here. So it's going to be cool to see a story pushing forward in this sequel. I'm excited about that. And I hope, one of my big complaints with Breath of the Wild was Calamity Ganon. It's not really like a villain. It's just kind of catastrophe, a force of nature. So it's going to be cool to be getting a Zelda game with a villain who's, up to no good and, messing things up and creating those dramatic, dark, sinister moments. I think that's really exciting.
Gonna get some epic Ganondorf lines for sure.
Oh man,
we already have.
Yeah, I think they did a great job with that. But Brandon, how about you give me some of your opening kind of excited thoughts or lack thereof, if for whatever reason you decided.
I am a hateful person, angry, maliceful. In fact, no, I'm super hyped for the game. I think the thing that actually makes me the most hype is kind of what was making me not hype in the lead up, which is something you mentioned. Nintendo's barely shown like anything of this game. Like there's so much that we don't know. Like even the previews, which was showing most of the areas they'd already shown in that 10-minute demo, but like a little bit more expanded, but not much. And there was just so much there. This constant stuff. I was like, oh, you can do this with this ability, and it showed the possibilities so much more. It was really an eye opener. And it's just like I'm so excited to go and explore and just figure out what this game's about. Like what's happening with dungeons, what's happening with shrine replacements. We've kind of seen them, but not really what they like the actual puzzles or anything. What's up with the new Sheikah Tower replacements? What is the enemy variety? We've seen a couple new enemy types, but I have a feeling there's a lot more out there that we have not seen. And mini bosses or overworld bosses as well that we have not seen, for sure. So it's just so exciting to go out and just explore the world. Even though it's the same world as the base, there's just so much more now, and there's so much stuff that I want to find out. And it's just gonna be epic.
Oh yeah, this game is gonna be the epic of epics. But let's now get into the chat. You guys have been on here for a little bit. I want to try and get to as many people as I can. Let's see here. Christopher Lee added me earlier. Good to see you. Thanks for all the content. Can't wait for Tears of the Kingdom. We are so close. I've been counting it off. Like yesterday, I was like, okay, so yesterday being Sunday, I was like, all right, Sunday night to Monday night. So Monday night will be one day, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. So, all right, so it's Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday. All right, 3 days, 3 days and a few hours, and we'll be playing Tears of the Kingdom. We're so close. We're so close. Giancarlo, what if Tears of the Kingdom depicts the prologue battle of Skyward Sword and it ending loop back to Skyward Sword beginning, meaning Tears of the Kingdom is both the end and the beginning? That would be a real shocker. If that was all depicted right then and there. I do feel that there's definitely going to be some Skyward Sword representation throughout the game. I mean, there's Skyward Sword representation throughout Breath of the Wild. And I do think that they took some cues from Demise's design, which took some cues from Ganondorf's design. But I think that there's going to be at least some homage paying in Tears of the Kingdom to Skyward Sword. I do feel that at least.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to directly tie the game into any of the other games, like in a very obvious way. But there'll be references.
There will be many theory videos. This statue of Hylia was at a 45-degree angle on the third day of the second night, and there were 3 blades of grass, suggesting it's a trilogy. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm making fun of myself.
Be surprised. In the very first like teaser trailer reveal for this game, there's that cave sequence where it shows all the hieroglyphics and like the markings on the wall. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see some Skyward Sword representation in those markings. Maybe it shows Sky Islands or like a depiction of Demise or Hylia and stuff like that. Kind of like how they do at the beginning of Wind Waker and Skyward Sword, where it kind of goes through like the legends and that cool kind of hieroglyphic-y art, cave art. That would be a cool way to kind of Easter egg and tie some of the previous entries into like, oh yeah, like all this stuff kind of, these are all the different legends, Right.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
It would be interesting to see them kind of tell a little bit of the history. Yeah, that would be cool. Having Hope 5, I can't believe we are 4 days from Jesus. I can't believe it either. Jean-Claude, the beginning of the franchise is kind of like a loop. Yeah, I understood that earlier. Let's see here. Joy CJ, hello, thank you for modding. Always appreciated. Hello there, the gamer. Hello there, Boss Gags. I'm sorry for spoiling that the game is amazing. I
might forgive you.
I won't eat as much cake tonight, I promise. It's punishment. Boss Cast, I can't wait for the reviews. I'm thinking 95 Metacritic. Alright, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I want to get through the chat, but I feel like we should kind of put out our thoughts on this. I thought about making a video on this, but it looks like I ran out of time to do that. It was either making the Voices of the Kingdom theory video or it was making a Metacritic prediction video on Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, I could do one tomorrow, but it doesn't seem worth it. I don't know. But anyways, what are your Metacritic predictions, guys? Where do we think this game is going to fall on the Metacritic score? And for those who don't understand what Metacritic isn't a single outlet. It's an outlet, but they compile all accredited outlets' reviews for different games. So the Metacritic score is an aggregate score of all of that. And it's a good way to have a good understanding of how well people are reviewing the game compared to other games that have come out. So, for example, Ocarina of Time has a 98. It's one of the highest reviewed games of all time. I think it might actually be the highest reviewed game of all time on Metacritic.
It was at one point.
Yeah, I don't know if that changed recently. But the other thing about Ocarina of Time, though, is it's a little bit of a low sample size because there aren't many outlets reviewing back in the 90s. But another good example, Breath of the Wild is the highest reviewed game on Metacritic at a 97 for Switch games. It's the highest reviewed Switch game. And there are a lot of Switch games, a lot of great games. it's going to be tough to beat Breath of the Wild. So, now that I put that out there, what are you guys thinking? Do you think Tears of the Kingdom can come close to that score, beat it somehow, or just settle for something a little bit lower but still be great in its own right?
I think it's gonna land somewhere between 96 and 98. That's my prediction. Yeah. If it does worse than Breath of the Wild, I think it just misses the mark. I could see it landing at the 97 again. Granted, like, it was a launch game. It was a Wii U game. Expectations, maybe not as high. Breath of the Wild also was an original concept for Zelda. It was a breath of fresh air. This game has big shoes to fill, and there's no doubt to my mind that it won't be able to do that and be even better and greater. But performance will play into that depending on how the game's performing. Reviewers may or may not be as critical. But yeah, I'm going to say on the high end of 98, on the low end of 96. I think 97 is a sweet spot. I think it's going to tie or do one better. That's my prediction.
I think we talked about this last week or the week before a little bit. Like we mentioned it briefly. I think what we said is, I think me and Andres agreed that it wouldn't be below a 95. But I'm kind of 50-50 on this now. Just because reviewers tend to give sequels a lower score just because sometimes. Like, it's very up in the air, I feel, how this is going to go down. Because I feel like even if it deserves a higher score, like, some games tend to get lower scores just because the concept's already been done. It's not as new and shiny. So I would predict, I think I'm going to stick with what I said before. It's probably going to get at least the 95, but I kind of have a feeling it could get a little bit below, but definitely not below a 90. Like, it's definitely going to be at least like mid-90s, I think.
I want to add something real quick. I feel like, Brandon, I agree with you. Generally, sequels do a little bit worse than the original. Lots of times people will be like, oh, it's familiar territory, or it plays it a little too safe. But I do think that fuse mechanic, and granted, I don't think that's going to be for everyone, but that mechanic alone completely breaks that engine, and they had to like redevelop around that. Probably explains a lot of the development time. I think just that alone, ignoring anything else, I don't know any of the spoilers. I am currently spoiler free, so I don't know what else the game has to offer, but I think that mechanic alone is going to offer so much diversity in the way people tackle and play that it's going to bring back that fresh feeling that we felt when we played Breath of the Wild and we're seeing things for the first time. But I don't know.
I can see that, because in the previews, like, the game does generally kind of look like Breath of the Wild, but the way they went about like finishing tasks like was completely different. The use of diffuse ability and Ultra Hand, like those two
Ultra Hand, that's another one.
Both are just, like, as you said, complete game changers, and they really do change the way that people were like tackling issues. So I do think it will feel fresh, and I think it will probably deserve at least as good a rating or higher. I'm just kind of like, I don't know if it will get it though,
Sure.
It's gonna be the GOAT.
Gonna get a 99.
So if for those unfamiliar what I mean by GOAT, I'm not referring to the Buddy Zonai person, dragon person. Even though he looks goat-like-ish. And for the record, for those arguing it's a dragon, maybe, but the dragons in Breath of the Wild were modeled off other animals like goats and dogs. So, there you go. It's everything. But when I say GOAT, I mean the acronym greatest of all time. I think Tears of the Kingdom is going to become that. And you know what? Actually, let me dial that back. Playing through Breath of the Wild recently, I've been back and forth on this for a long time. What's my favorite game? Is it Ocarina of Time? Is it Breath of the Wild? What's my favorite game? Because Ocarina of Time for so many years was like, oh, what's your favorite game of all time? Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time, I feel like, plays such a vital role into who I am as a person. And I think it's it was the quintessential fantasy medieval adventure game. Like, if you want to know what fantasy medieval adventure games are, Ocarina of Time was it. Now that is Breath of the Wild.
Set the bar.
And playing through Breath of the Wild now, and enjoying it again, 6 years later, I'm prepared to say, definitively, that Breath of the Wild is my personal favorite game of all time. Definitively. And that may change. That may change in 4 days. It's not going to change. No, these things take years. So, like, when Breath of the Wild came out and I was consistent, I said, listen, Breath of the Wild is incredible, but it's going to take us years to understand just how good it really is. It's kind of like, I don't know if you remember from history class, but they would talk about, at least back when I took history class, they would talk about how, like, you can't really assess things from a historical perspective until it's been like 10 years. We're not even there for Breath of the Wild yet, so maybe we should wait longer. But point is, the more time passes, the more we can sort of assess things a little bit more objectively and can kind of compare it across the board. But right now, again, 6 years, not 10, but I do kind of feel like Breath of the Wild personally takes that for me. That said, I agree.
I do not.
Well, it's my opinion.
It's a very I'm just saying.
It's my personal take for what it is for me. I'm not saying it's the greatest game of all time across the board for everyone.
No, I know what you're saying. I'm just saying, for me personally, I don't even think it's my favorite game amongst the two, just Breath of the Wild or Ocarina of Time. I think it's different for me, though, favorite versus, like, the best or the game I'd rather play. Because I think for me, it's like my favorite game is, like, a game that's impacted me the most, or, like, something that has, like, the most nostalgia for me, I guess.
I understand that.
Yeah,
and I don't think even in 10 years, Breath of the Wild is going to have more nostalgia than Ocarina of Time. I don't think anything in my life is going to impact me more than Ocarina of Time. I don't think it's possible.
Here's the thing, and you kind of touched on this, Andres. I think so far for me personally, there have been 2 games of the generation so far. And those 2 games for me were Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring.
Okay.
No, Metroid Dread
it was a joke, but it is Metroid Dread.
Metroid Dread is up there. But Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring. And I think one of the things that makes those games really special is I think of a lot of other games that review incredibly well, but they come out, they review well, everyone talks about it on its release month, and then no one talks about it again. But Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring were games that remained in the discussion in the community and games media, like, all year long, and even still to this day.
We're still talking about Breath of the Wild.
You're still talking about Breath of the Wild. They're still talking about, like, crazy Elden Ring players doing speed runs. And
I've seen the Attack on Titan stuff
all the time.
I've seen the Attack on Titan stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then, like, a game like, I'm a God of War fan. I loved God of War. I loved God of War Ragnarok. But, like, that game's not in the conversation anymore. Like, people loved it. It reviewed well. That's said and done. Tears of the Kingdom is going to be one of those games of the generation. Tears of the Kingdom, 100%. I bet it all on it. That people are going to be talking about that game for months or even years to come. So to agree to your point, like, people will still be, like, looking back on it a decade from now. But I think that's one of the things that's going to make this game truly special. Breath of the Wild's not my favorite Zelda, but I think as far as, like, a first impression, it was the most powerful first impression of any Zelda that I've ever played. Looking back, taking off the rose-tinted glasses, I do miss a lot of the staples. It's the traditional style dungeons and unique boss fights and more of a focused story. But these are all things that I think we're going to get in Tears of the Kingdom, and that's why I think this has potential to be the greatest. Blow Breath of the Wild out of the water, blow everything else out of the water, but here's hoping.
Yeah. So, first off, I was using the Breath of the Wild talk as a precursor to my thoughts on the Metacritic thing. So I'm kind of coming back to that. But before I do, Brandon, because you were talking about Ocarina of Time is more of a plays more of a role to your childhood. And I mean, Ocarina of Time obviously plays more of a role for my childhood because I'm a grown man now. And when I played Breath of the Wild, I was still a grown man. I've been a grown man for a while. So I get that. But what's amazing about Breath of the Wild is that even being a grown man, at a time coming right out of the Wii U, where there was a serious question if Nintendo or video games as a whole could still sort of draw me in as they used to when I was a kid. Breath of the Wild came out, and it proved that that could still happen. And to Cameron's point, not only did Breath of the Wild prove to be a special moment like that drew me in just like when I was a kid, but we're still talking about today. Even if Tears of the Kingdom wasn't a thing, we'd still be talking about Breath of the Wild. And when I started playing Breath of the Wild recently, there was a lot of moments of nostalgia that came up that were powerful. But let me throw in a fourth claim to greatness. You mentioned earlier in terms of like what would be the most fun to play. If I had to pick one game out of all the games that are currently out that I would be stuck in a room for a month and that can only play that and eat and sleep, I would pick Breath of the Wild. Because I've never been bored playing that game. I'm never like, oh man, I gotta turn this off. It's like I always enjoy playing Breath of the Wild. There's so much to do and enjoy. The gameplay is endless. I'm still learning things about Breath of the Wild, and I have hundreds of hours into that game. So all those reasons, I think, really help its claim to greatness. That all said, when it comes to how I think they're going to review Tears of the Kingdom, obviously that's a tough call, because we don't know how good this game is. We don't know what Sour Crotch is going to give it a 1. But there will be some asshat somewhere that's going to skew the score here. It always happens, no matter what. But somehow...
What's the DLC headline?
Yeah. Kotaku. Oh, Kotaku getting a review copy. Yeah. You can't do it. You got blacklisted. But anyway, because of Metroid Dread, by the way, also a great game. They promoted piracy of a series that's struggling to sell. They promoted piracy. That's just ridiculous. Anyways, back to the point. I'm gonna go out on a limb and adjust my initial thoughts on the 95 score I said before. I didn't say it would score 95. I would say it would at least hit a 95. I'm going to adjust that to hitting at least a 97. And dare I say, I have a warmth or an inkling that maybe it could creep above it. 98? No. 98? Oh, come on. That's too disappointing. 98, the greatest of all time? 99! I am predicting a score of 99. Okay, I'm probably not really.
That's
not really.
Nigh on impossible.
It's not, but it.
I mean, hell, I predict a score of 100.
It's going to be perfect.
Which is practically impossible.
Yeah, for the record, even if it scored 100, that still wouldn't mean it's perfect. That's just you can give a game a 10 out of 10, and that doesn't mean you think it's perfect. So
right, yeah, a flawed game can still be a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, but it's total. Our numbers are the numbers are arbitrary. But I do have an optimism that it can match or surpass Breath of the Wild on Metacritic. I somehow think that this can happen. And I maybe it's the hype talking to me. Maybe it is, right? But but I'll just say, like, last week when I was cautious and said at least 95, I'm really just bumping that up 2 points. At least a 96. Yeah. It's probably at least a 96, but whatever. We're just, this is all for fun. So we'll see. We'll see.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to say too, because like, even though we've gotten that demo preview, we got that final trailer, like, Brandon touched on this earlier at the beginning of the podcast, like the secrecy around this game. Like, we still don't know. So like, this is a massive game that we've only seen teensy bitsy pieces of. So based on what I've seen, I personally feel like it's going to hit at least a 96, just based on knowing about the fuse mechanics, knowing about
it addresses a huge issue
that you get, the sky stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, sorry to cut you off. I just want to add to your point because Fuse, what it does is it addresses a major issue a lot of people had about the game, and that's the items breaking, weapons breaking. It doesn't get rid of it, but it changes it in a way that makes weapon durability a lot more palatable for a lot more people. And the same could be said for rain, because rain would be annoying because we would slip down walls. But now they added ascend. So you can escalate far more easily.
And vehicles. And vehicle building.
There's so many other ways to traverse upwards now. It's
there's
not just
a rocket to launch up, so, yeah. But yeah, no, like, basically what I'm saying is, like, we've only seen, like, little bits and pieces of the game, but the little things we've seen are massive, dramatic, game-changing changes. They're not things that are like, oh, it's like the first one, it improves on a lot of the aspects, but it's treading familiar ground. It's not that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's like, nah, we're completely changing the gameplay. You're going to be tackling puzzles and monsters in ways that were never possible in the previous game. This is your imagination. It's not just physics puzzles anymore. And then, like, sprinkling, are there dungeons in the game? It sure looks like it based on that last trailer.
Bro, yeah,
that's like huge.
Like, Brandon and I analyzed the trailer during a live stream, and like, there's a water dungeon there. Like,
looks like
they showed us a water. Like, I made a video on it, kind of breaking it down more so, but it's a water dungeon, bro. Like, there's toxic coming from the skies, and it's actually contaminating Zora's domain waters. Like, you know those dark lines you've seen in the background before? I'm pretty sure that's the slime that's coming down from these sky islands that Link is exploring with Sidon. And they're contaminating Zora's domain. Yeah. So Sidon and Link go to the skies to find a water dungeon to clear that out. And that already tells us that the dungeons are going to be more themed than they were in Breath of the Wild.
Right. I can tell you, like, based on what we've seen, I think gameplay is going to be better. I think the world is going to be more fun to interact with. We got the sky now. We've got Underground now, which is awesome. We've got Hyrule, which has changed and shifted. We have brand new abilities. We have freedom of creation. We possibly have the return of dungeons. We have the return of a more focused and centered story. Like, I'm hoping to see reviews that say, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, 10 out of 10. This game takes the imagination and creativity of Breath of the Wild and fuses it masterfully with the staples that we know and love about previous Zelda games. Like, I don't know. It's hard for me to see this game based on what we know doing worse than a 96. I see it hitting a 97 easily and even hitting a 98. 99, I don't got the Triforce of Courage, Andres, so I'm not gonna shoot that high, but 98 I think is achievable.
Bro, if it hit 98, do you know how insane that would be?
Yeah, in a good way. It would be crazy.
But in a good way, like, that would just mean it would be incredible.
Yeah.
But I want to move on, just because this was just kind of like a single chat, so let's continue on. So Samuel actually provided a super chat earlier. Thank you for the super chat, Samuel. Samuel said, "From what I heard, this game is much bigger than Breath of the Wild. What do you think is next for Zelda to fill between the next game? Examples: Ocarina of Time remake, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker HD. I think those are it. I think Twilight Princess, Wind Waker HD. The reason we didn't see them is because Nintendo realized, hey, this took us almost 7 years to make. Let's say some stuff to kind of tide things over. I think we can expect Twilight Princess and Wind Waker between Tears of the Kingdom and the next big 3D Zelda 7 years from now. I hope it doesn't take 7 years, but it might. There's a correlation with them taking longer and longer.
Tears of the Kingdom isn't out yet, but what you just said hurt me so bad inside.
Yeah.
Caused me so much pain.
It may not take that long.
Go see my therapist.
Maybe they'll find a way to do it in 5 years or something. But
what I would like, because I do think that they'll probably do another open world Zelda after this. Obviously, probably a new art style, not tied to Breath of the Wild in any way, or Tears of the Kingdom. It would be its own thing, but I still think it would be like open world. I would like them to make a game that's more linear, but with like absolutely insane set pieces. Like, I want a Final Fantasy 16, but Zelda. Like, if you've seen the trailers, or like 21-minute gameplay showcase they showed for Final Fantasy 16, I haven't seen cooler gameplay ever. Like, legitimately, in all my time seeing any games, I've never seen something that looked that impressive, like that cool. Like, the boss fights actually blew me away. And I'm like, man, I love open worlds and I love Zelda, but maybe if they made a shorter, linear, super bombastic, Zelda in between the open world Zelda, smaller scale, dude, that would be amazing.
The only way I see that is if they did like an Ocarina of Time remake. I really don't feel like we'll get a 3D Zelda that isn't open world. I just don't see it.
Yeah, maybe they'll have to get a new series. I think Zelda honestly could have gone that direction instead of open world, and it wouldn't have done as well.
No.
But I think it would have been a cool direction, and it's not something Nintendo's currently really doing. So I would like to see it.
Like,
I think
what if they structure another series in that direction? Like, what if the future for Kid Icarus is that? What if you make Kid Icarus kind of like that linear action adventure? That'd be kind of cool.
Well, I want to make sure I'm understanding you, Brandon. Like, is it the linear nature that because it sounded like you were describing like you want kind of a more cinematic experience.
Yeah, very very cinematic. Like I feel like what you would expect from like a Sony game, but more Nintendo gameplay, obviously.
I feel like you could still do things like that in a Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom style game, and an example of that, like, yes, it's not as like maybe not as like in your face cinematic as Final Fantasy 16, but this is an older game, and I think it did it flawlessly, and that was Shadow of the Colossus was an extremely cinematic experience with its boss fights, and it's one of the reasons why I want the Zelda team to kind of return to those more unique traditional bosses, whether or not it's in the open world or in the dungeons, like those kind of like multi-phase bosses, is because they design them so well. And I think of some of the boss fights from like Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword or Wind Waker. You could plant some of those bosses in an open world and give them similar mechanics, and man, it would be cinematic. It would be epic. It would be really fun.
Yeah,
but
I think you could add some elements, but I also want like a super in-depth focused story. And I think the Zelda universe is perfect for that. Honestly, I would like an older Link. I don't know if Nintendo will ever do this. At this point, I'm just wish listing like my
this Link's pretty old.
My dream Zelda game.
He's like
I want a mid-30s
plus.
Zelda with like a Link. I mean, a mid-30s Link with like a beard, like super jaded.
Just play as Rex in Future Redeemed. Just play as Rex in Future Redeemed.
That's not the same. I want something more like.
But what do you mean? Rex is about as like Giga Chad as it gets.
I don't want Giga Chad. I want super
Giga
dark.
Chad.
I want this dude to be jaded. I want him to hate the world.
Oh, then you should probably play a different game.
Nah. I think this could all make sense in this context of Zelda, and I think it would be amazing.
Yeah. But just to go back to Samuel's question, I think Twilight Princess Wind Waker, I don't think Nintendo will do a linear Zelda like what Brandon's saying. I do think, however,
might do 2D Zelda.
Oh, yeah, I mean 2D Zelda, yeah. 2D Zelda maybe.
Yeah.
But I also think that even Tears of the Kingdom might be more cinematic and might appeal to some of what Brandon is saying while still being open world. But I throw this idea out there that it feels like some people kind of picked up on it, but the Ocarina of Time remake thing, I feel like between now and 2030, I think we could see a 3D remake of Ocarina of Time. I know they already did it for 3DS, but I feel like they could do a better one with some new mechanics maybe down the road as like a stopgap. I could see it. So between
I just want to point out that people like my idea in the comments.
I'm sure
people are going for it. Not everybody.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
Not everybody.
It's not a bad idea. I'm just saying I don't think Nintendo's going to do it because what's going to make them more money? Open world Zelda or not open world Zelda? Look at how Skyward Sword was a linear Zelda, and it performed worse than Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time. Like, it was not good. Potentially for other reasons, but my point is simply that I think open world Zelda can take a lot of those things you want and still be open. I do think that can happen. But anyways,
because,
go on, Cameron.
Sorry.
No, go on.
I was just really quick. Wind Waker is, excluding Breath of the Wild, I feel like Wind Waker was the most open world-ish Zelda game.
Like the first open world Zelda game.
And still, had a linear story. It had really cool cinematic moments that had I remember the first time sailing and running into like the huge storm with the giant Octorok that bursts out of the ocean.
So
and
cool.
It's like whoa, and just like they could do really cool stuff like that, and double down on those kind of like living, breathing world dynamic moments. As tech gets better in development, they learn more and
if
get
you think
more
about
ideas.
It, right? Like cinematics are done in the context of things that immerse us, right? So what I mean is that it's supposed to kind of tell a story of something that's happening, something that's believable to us, right? The way we perceive the world. We live in a 3D world, so theoretically, you can still create a cinematic experience in an open world. It can still be done. Sure. It's just harder. So to your point, like the giant. The giant, they're not Octoroks, right? Are the giant?
They're not Octoroks. No, I just say.
Yeah.
It's not an Octorok.
What are they called? The giant squids in
know.
And Wind Waker. Giant. What's the name of them? Giant. I feel like I know this and I just kind of forgot.
I think it Octo something maybe.
Giant squid, Wind Waker, Big Octo.
Big Octo. That was close.
Yeah, you were very close. Yeah. Anyway, I think it could happen. But regardless, I think Nintendo has good games in the works, and that I have faith in. I have a couple of super chats I want to get to here. So Ansel, first super chat ever from Ansel. Thank you super very much for the super chat. Ansel says 98 if a hater doesn't hate, and I am pretty sure Ansel's referring to the Metacritic score for Tears of the Kingdom. 98, let's go. 98, can it happen? We'll find out in a few days. We'll find out before we get to play Tears of the Kingdom, which, well, the Metacritic score is going to be kind of going up and down for a little bit, but it'll be, if it's in that realm, we'll know by late Thursday. Nintendo Prime, friend of the channel, also provided a super chat. Thanks, buddy. Mr. Prime says, Tears of the Kingdom hype overload. Overload indeed. The hype is real. Thank you very much for the super chat, buddy. But let's continue on with the chat here. There's a lot more I want to get to. Let's see. Boss Kike. Some people are getting the physical games early. Mike Odyssey did apparently. Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't seen other people get it. My thing is that, like, how are people getting it, right? Because I know that some people, I'm sure, have gotten it early, for sure. Some people have to review the game and stuff like that. But there are people that are buying the game off illegal sites like Mercury, spend a few $100s on that. I haven't seen any, like, Amazon stuff happen, any proof of it, at least. I don't know. People have obviously,
like people getting their shipments early.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere that there was like some small privately owned like mom and pop type game stores that got their shipments and just started selling them.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that happening. Yeah, I can see that happening. But I feel like the big site, like, I don't see how Amazon would, like, without it becoming like a serious issue, like Amazon sending out copies like a week early. That would be insane. But I don't know. Stranger things have happened. Spheromancer added me, are you going to upload the gameplay of your first playthrough or just use it for tips footage? Was excited to see your reactions to playing for the first time. I didn't plan on, because it's going to be past midnight when I play. Like, I'm not going to be like in a position to like record myself. Sorry, I hit the mic. Like with my face. Like I'm gonna cuddle up in my bed, turn off the lights, like, and just kind of like really immerse myself. But I will be live streaming the beginning of the game Friday, and I will be talking about how I feel about the beginning of the game multiple times. But I'm not gonna do a live reaction of the beginning of the game, just because I want the beginning of the game for me to be unadulterated, unimpacted by external things. Because when I'm live streaming, it's fun, but like, for example, if you actually play with Breath of the Wild live stream, I can't pay attention to cutscenes while you guys are in the chat. Like, it's just so hard.
You have to constantly be on and entertaining, and it's hard to get really immersed into what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those first Zelda moments, they're a personal experience, you know? It's like, you know.
Yeah. Special.
But
every once in like half a decade.
Yeah, I will be talking about it though, for sure. All right, so I was trying to find myself in the chat. Charles Shadell with another super chat as well. Thank you for the super chat, super appreciated. Charles Shadell, Toad Overload GIF here. They really should allow us to post GIFs on the YouTube chat. That'd be amazing. That Toad is as excited. Yeah, it's like the Toad's like, ugh, it's crazy. It's crazy. Nintendo Prime counting down, dropping the 72 hours remain stuff. Oh yeah, I was thinking about posting something like that. Everyone's gonna post that.
Oh yeah.
Jean-Carl, why not alternate between classic 3D style Zelda, 2D Zelda, and Breath of the Wild style Zelda? That would be ideal for us when we wait for the next major game of the franchise. Maybe I'm off. Maybe you're right. Maybe they can do like a linear Zelda on the way in between open Zelda. Yeah, I don't know. I personally doubt they'll do that.
Get a different team to do it.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I don't know, guys. I think the hybrid formula is the winner. I think taking those staples that we know and love about classic Zelda, dungeons, bosses, story, fusing it with the imagination and creativity and openness of Breath of the Wild, I think that's a winning formula. And I think they can go like super traditional with the 2D, more like Link's Awakening or Link to the Past style.
It's hard to say like what I want them to improve upon Tears of the Kingdom, because I haven't played the game yet, nor have I seen hardly anything from it. So it's like, are the dungeons gonna be as good as classic dungeons? I don't know. Are the bosses gonna be as good? I don't know. Are there gonna be things I still miss from classic Zelda or from a more linear experience? I don't know.
You want to know what's crazy though? We're gonna know next week. This podcast next week, I guarantee you, we're gonna know something about dungeons. Like we're gonna be like, oh, this is what they are. That's gonna be crazy. It's all these years waiting, and we're finally gonna know.
Here's what I want to know. One of my favorite Zelda items of all time, I also think it's one of the least utilized in Zelda, is the spin top from Twilight Princess. I loved the spin top.
Great item.
My guess is that the spin top doesn't exist in the way that we know and love from Twilight Princess, but can we make a spin top? Can I craft a spin top?
Yo, what if it's a Zonai item?
Or a Zonai spin top? Or maybe they give you items inside, like if dungeons are a thing. You know, maybe you get some traditional items that you can only use in the dungeons. I know that would.
There could be like a Zonai. There could be like a Zonai spinner inside a dungeon that you only use in the dungeon because it's the only place that has those tracks.
Sure, exactly, like it's a mechanic within the dungeon. Exactly what I mean.
Yeah,
dude, that'd be hype. Actually, I love the spinner. That's a great one. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's only in Twilight Princess, and you only really use it a couple times.
Sure, or like, you know, Wind Waker, you've got your little grapple, you throw it over and you swing.
Yeah.
You know, there could be a space in a dungeon where, you know, it has like the ropes and stuff and you're swinging across. Like, I don't know, like incorporate some of those classic items in a new way with it contained within the dungeons might be kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I really feel like the Zonai items though, like I think there's something like we have a rocket, we have a flame-throwing dragon head, we have a hand cannon. Like there are some pretty like these, like if you think about those items, you put them in a different Zelda, they would be their own dedicated item you would get in a dungeon, but they're kind of like just something you can use in a variety of ways in Tears of the Kingdom. So it wouldn't shock me if there. Maybe I don't know if we'll get a spinner, but I also have to imagine that we haven't seen all the Zonai items. I have to imagine that they didn't just reveal all of them in the footage. So I think there's more. Who knows? And maybe you're right. Maybe there are special abilities or special items we get specifically for the dungeons. There's probably something. So we'll have an idea really soon. Really, really soon. Noah H with another super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Noah. Noah says, can't wait to see the Tears of the Kingdom review podcast in a week. You bet. We're going to be talking about Tears of the Kingdom next Monday. I guarantee it. We're going to talk about Tears of the Kingdom every day for a long time, first off. Like, this is going to be a big deal. Let's see here. JM, how long will it be until the game gets rated? Because people are still putting out videos about the things you still don't know about Breath of the Wild. Pretty sure Tears of the Kingdom is rated E10. I think it's been like that for a bit. Some people might post imagery of an unrated. Are you talking about reviews or like ESRB rating? Because it's E10. When the reviews come out, it's either, if not Wednesday, it's Thursday. For sure. Josh Coleman. Elden Ring initially had a 98 right after embargo, but soon dropped to a 97 and finally 96, which was sad. Yeah, so to temper expectations, when reviews start dropping for Tears of the Kingdom and we see it's like at a 99 or 100 or something, and we're like, oh my god, it's amazing. Keep in mind, it just takes one person to drag down that score. And it could come a day, 2 days, 3 days later. So I would say usually when it comes to Metacritic scores, they start high and then go down. But on occasion, they bump up a little bit. It does sometimes go in the opposite direction, but more times than not, it reviews a little bit lower because there's going to be the outliers that skew it downwards. That's just what happens. Moving on through the chat here. Let's see. AB James. They need to make the Breath of the Wild of top-down Zelda. A new Hyrule map with 1-ups, a Link to the Past map, new story, gameplay mechanics, etc. Link to the Past is still the best 2D Zelda of all time. How do you feel about Link Between Worlds? I feel like a Link Between Worlds, in a way, is kind of like that. Like, a Link Between Worlds, they were already experimenting with a more open style of game design for Zelda.
Do like pretty much all the dungeons in any order.
Right, and that was them kind of trying to break the conventions of Zelda, and that led into Breath of the Wild, where the same would be applied. So you could argue Link Between Worlds was that, but they did not follow that up with something else.
It's such a good game, though.
Yeah,
it is a really good game.
Yeah, I am okay with 2D Zelda being linear though, because I do think there is a space for that, like, and for us, like, to appreciate. It just kind of comes out how Nintendo will handle it and market all that stuff.
Yeah.
A guy you don't know added me. Hey there, hope you're doing well. Here's a question. Do you think Tears of the Kingdom will mark the last high point in the base Switch's lifespan before we get the next system? I guess that depends on what you define as a high point. Yeah.
Yeah, Jinx.
Yeah. But you owe me a soda.
Oh, what? I mean, here, you want a Dr. Pepper cream soda?
That sounds...
Just throw one through the stream.
That sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good. I'm making me thirsty.
I mean, it's going to be the biggest point from now until the Switch is over. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I doubt there's going to be any absolutely massive games. The only ones I can think of that might be coming before the next Switch would be maybe a 3D Mario could come out before, and maybe Metroid Prime 4 could come out before. But both of those games I could see coming out after as well.
Yeah.
Or alongside.
I'm not even, for me personally, I'm not even a maybe 3D Mario could come out before. I think there's no way a 3D Mario comes out before Switch 2. Maybe something that's not quite like, maybe like a Mario side thing. If it's like I don't know if it'll be a 2D Mario. Maybe it's still a Mario with 3D elements, but it's not like the 3D Mario. Like, I could see something like that to tie in with the movie. Yeah, Metroid I think could be saved. Could be not saved, but the opposite. Like, could come out before Switch 2, I think, just because it's been announced for Switch. But I feel like Prime 4 is likely a launch window game. So it is kind of.
I feel like that game is already like being programmed with this next Switch in mind. Like it's still gonna have a great version on the original Switch, obviously, but I
As
do think
evidenced
they're
by
already
Primary
thinking
Mastered.
about. Right, I do think they're already thinking about the next Switch and have that version like in the works.
I agree with Andres. I don't think we're going to get the next big 3D Mario on the current Switch. I think Nintendo saw a real winning formula with the launch of Zelda, on the Switch, and the importance of having that massive first-party title. I think the next 3D Mario will be that. I think it's a perfect game for that. They know Mario is going to sell. Odyssey was phenomenal. We had that confirmed for that first year, getting Zelda and Mario. It was a big deal. I think for Metroid, I feel like that one is going to be a double release. We're going to get it on Switch and then the next console. I feel like with the sales of Metroid games, Nintendo doesn't want to miss out on that install base. So I could see them doing it's coming to Switch, but if you want to play the best version of it, it's going to be on our next hardware.
Well, I honestly think. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but I honestly think they're going to do that for pretty much every game, like Mario as well. I don't think they're going to have a hard cutoff because I don't think they need to. And as you said, I don't think they want to get rid of their install base. So I think what we've seen with the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, it's going to be a lot of cross-gen.
I think it's going to be a situation. I mean, I don't know, but I kind of get the sense that maybe Switch 2, some people are going to be like, oh, so this is the Switch Pro, right? Because it's going to not necessarily feel like a straight next generation leap in terms of their practices because of the cross generational gap. I mean, maybe there'll still be separate cartridges for both systems, so that'll be a divide, but it'll still be backwards compatible and releasing on both. Yeah, so
it's hard to say though too, because I think it's really easy for us to say the next console is going to be a Switch 2 or a Super Switch.
Might be Virtual Boy.
But Nintendo is masterclass at defying expectations and coming from left field. We really have no idea what they're doing. I know there's rumblings of just a little bit more powerful Switch or a Switch that might hit PS4 graphics, but I wouldn't be surprised if they threw something left field, that we just, whatever the gimmick is. I don't expect
Nintendo car.
I honestly
down on Switch, and I think the Wii U is an example of just trying to piggyback off the success of a previous console that did really well. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a winner.
I think the problem with the Wii U was that nobody was really interested in the Wii anymore when the Wii U launched, whereas the Switch has completely kept momentum. People are sold on the idea of Switch, and it's not going away. The idea of the Wii was cool at the time when it launched, but then people were like, oh, we can do a lot of similar types of stuff way easier on our phones, just really quick. Whereas you can't do what the Switch is doing on pretty much any other device. And I think it would be an honest, super mistake, a shot not to the foot, but to the main artery in your leg, maybe to the head, if they went and they actually didn't make it backwards compatible. I think whether or not they do cross-play or keep games exclusive to the next console, I don't know if that will hurt them as much. But if they don't at least keep system integration, they need the account that you made on your Switch needs to be the same exact account on your Switch 2, and all your games need to transfer over, your cloud save need to transfer over. If they can't get this right, it's going to be a huge blunder. Because one of the big things that keeps people in, say, the Sony, keeps people buying PS5s and PS4s is because they know when they buy the next system, all their games work, their accounts work. They have all this huge backlog that keeps them loyal because they don't want to get rid of that. If it's just another system with another idea that they have to completely sell people on and a completely new, I'm not sure what the word is, but you need a new account. You don't keep any of your same games. You need
a new online infrastructure. That would be bad.
Yeah, I think that would honestly it would. I don't think it would die. I think it might do okay, but it would not do nearly as well, I think, as if they just released a more polished Switch. I think they could do gimmicks and cool stuff on top of that concept. You know, we have crazy things that you wouldn't expect on the Switch, like the IR sensor. They did some really cool stuff with Labo and stuff with that, but I don't think they're going to change the design in a way that will make it not compatible with the Switch or make it to where you need to like completely separate those ecosystems, because I think that would be detrimental.
Yeah.
I think you make good points. I just, and I think there was a number of issues around the Wii U as well as like bad branding. You know, a lot of people didn't even realize it was a new console. The naming was bad. It would be like if the next Switch was called the Switch 2, spelled TOO. You know.
That would be awful.
No, please don't ruin a good thing. To get back to the question though, in terms of like, what is there a last high point beyond Tears of the Kingdom? And first we got to define what is a high point, right? Because Pikmin 4 is a good game. That's gonna be a good game.
Yeah.
Or is the F-Zero GX remaster that's rumored? Is that a high point? Right, like it's gonna be a high point for me because F-Zero is the best racing game ever. But in terms of something that's like a 10+ million seller, there's like I said, if there's like a side Mario game, then that. If they bring out Metroid Prime 4 this holiday, then maybe that 10+ million is kind of like, I think I understand most people don't think Prime 4 is going to hit those numbers. So, you know, it would be it'd be an amazing thing for it to get to that level. But for us core Nintendo fans, it would be a high moment.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong, that could be potential. I think Donkey Kong is around the corner. Whether they save that for the next system or not, that's hard to say. I personally think that if Switch 2 doesn't come out this year, it's for sure coming out next year. So I mean, that's my take on it. Yeah. So that all said, I do think something needs to happen this holiday. Go on.
I wouldn't be surprised to hear them talk about their next system or make an announcement by the end of the year, you know, in a little like announcement direct, like how they did for the Switch, where they did that little Switch announcement.
The only problem I have with that is that the Switch sells so well right now. I feel like it would be weird to announce a system before the holidays to not have it during the holidays, so people wait and not buy things during the holidays. Because the Wii was a different scenario because the Wii was dead, right? There was no point in like trying to get people to buy Wii U for that holiday. That's kind of my thing. Like, so either it's like it's announced for this holiday, or it's announced early next year for like a mid-release or later on.
Right.
I mean, they could have a quick turnaround. Like, Nintendo's shown that they can announce something and have it come out really quick. Like, maybe they could do like a 3-month turnaround or something. Like, I think that could happen. Yeah. So, but I think there's a high point. Yeah. Anyways, what I was gonna say is just like, I think whatever it is, I don't think Nintendo's just gonna let this holiday go by without anything substantial. So, and I expect there will be summer announcements. I know some people are saying there won't be a direct this summer. Hint, there may be a video about that tomorrow. But
I think there kind of has to be one. We don't know anything besides Pikmin 4 after, this Friday. Yeah.
But let's move on because we are focusing on Zelda tonight. I see here Ansel provide another super chat. Thank you for that super chat, Ansel. Ansel says, I hope the Switch 2 allows you to use your old Switch as a Wii U pad-style controller. Completely optional, but an added bonus. I mean, so, like, one of the crazy things about the Wii U was that it had, like, 0 latency between its screen and the TV screen, because they could have like asymmetric gameplay that would connect the screens. So I guess they would need to have like a more substantially packed dock. They would have some intense Bluetooth technologies in there as well, along with other elements. So like, I mean, it would be cool. I don't think asymmetric gameplay is something that they're going to bring back just because it feels like it's too much to add. But
yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's going to get enough implementation for the use to be worth it.
Well,
like, how many developers do you think are going to actually use this?
I guess. Is there another reason? Is there another thing they can do? Like,
It's
like,
just such a niche thing too. Like you have to have either another Switch 2 or just still have your old Switch. Like I know I'm gonna like if I get another Switch before then, I'm gonna trade mine in. So like I feel like most people would do that.
Like maybe if they
who would be able to use this scenario?
The other thing's like the thing about the Switch is when it's plugged into the dock, it overclocks a bit, right? It has more wattage, so it can run better. And I assume the Switch 2 will probably operate similarly, if not by a more significant degree, if the dock has some extra parts to make it run better. So like if you're talking about like streaming gameplay from the Switch to the dock so you can watch on the TV, I mean, the main point wouldn't be to do that, right? Because it's already, the system's already there. It's more about having a screen that you can interact with, like the Wii U on the TV.
Right.
I mean,
but
you know,
like, what use is that if games don't implement that?
So actually, if there's like a second Switch, I actually could see them doing a thing. I think that's in theory even possible now, where you can have two Switches, one docked and one not. And you can do, like, in theory, they could do that, even now. The question is, could you do it with one Switch? That's where I think there would be issues. But if with two Switches, maybe there could be something like that. Maybe, like, if they were to make, like, a new Nintendo Land, which I desperately hope they do, maybe they could be like, hey, if you have a second Switch, you can do some cool asymmetric gameplay stuff, too. That would be awesome.
I actually love the idea of them incorporating the gimmick of the Wii U on a new piece of hardware. I think the Wii U gimmick is one of the best gimmicks out of any of Nintendo's for a home console. Like, just because, like, even if a developer doesn't specifically develop for, like, cool and interesting ways to take advantage of it, just the fact of having, like, I'll use Zelda as an example. It's, in my opinion, not even close. One of the best ways to play a Zelda game is on the Wii U. Just having your map and your items at the touch and not having to pull up menus and break the immersion of what's happening on the main screen is such a great quality of life thing. I think about what Sony has. They have the touchpad, and then I think of like the screen with your items and your map or your radar or whatever, your inventory. And just like the ease of use, if they can make that like streamline that and make it nice and sleek and easy to use and not as cumbersome and bulky and expensive, I love the idea of that.
Yeah, I mean, if they can do it all on your one Switch, like you can undock and stream it to your dock. But I believe the original comment was talking about using a second Switch to do this feature, which would not be convenient or cost effective.
Right.
But yeah, if it's all like built into like one Switch, like as a major part of the system, or even just a function of the system, then yeah, I think developers could do things like that. Because I do like even just simple implementations like the map being on the screen and being able to sort your items. Of course, that does require that the developer puts that in, though, even if it isn't a crazy feature. It is a feature that has to be put in. So if it's something that the system can do natively, then I think developers might go for that. But if it's just something you need like a whole other system to do, nobody's going to use that.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I do think the Switch 2 will probably surprise us in some way. What that may be, we shall see. But continuing on, Having Hope 5 has renewed their membership. Been a member for 3 straight months. Having Hope says, so close to 25K, so hyped for this Friday. Thank you, Having Hope. I also am very, very hyped for this Friday. But let's now get into the chat. Let's continue on here. Let me see if I can find some ads. Whoa, chat bump, got confused. Let's see. Web Opa. I wonder and hope that Tears of the Kingdom has a deep story again. That's why people play Zelda. So far, I've just seen a lot of engineering. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good point, Web Opa, like, because Nintendo's been so quiet about this game. But I will say that the absence of evidence isn't the evidence of absence. Right? I think I said something like that, and then Captain Bergeson said it more eloquently for me so I could remember the phrase better, right? So he helped me to perfect the phrase, and I know it's been used elsewhere. But yeah, so with that said, like, just because we haven't seen the story doesn't mean there isn't a good story, right? And I actually think that the reason that Nintendo's been so quiet has in large part been because they want the story to slap for us. And
dude, I hope so.
And I'll say this. I do believe there are flashbacks in Tears of the Kingdom in a sense. However, analyzing the trailers, what I feel I can say with confidence is that there is a lot of story happening in the current. For example, we see a scene where we see Riju, Sidon, and Tulin all together charging off into battle. And they each have gems. And the tears. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Sidon's wearing a crown in this scene. And so the importance of this is it implies that they've already obtained tears. They've already obtained some extra level of prestige. So this would suggest later into the game. So suggesting a progression, because we see Sidon without the crown, without the tear. And they're alive now. This is a future scene. So what it suggests is that unlike Breath of the Wild, where pretty much all the action took place beforehand, except for the final battle from a story perspective, this game is going to have more than that. Like, there is going to be things happening that don't happen before. And in fact, there's more. We know Link damages his Master Sword with that beginning encounter with Ganondorf underground. Right. But we also see Zelda holding the Master Sword at one point. But we also see Link in the beginning islands holding the Master Sword as well. So there is an exchange of the damaged Master Sword at some point. More evidence of current storyline progressions between Link and Zelda, and also Ganondorf by extension because of the Master Sword being damaged. These are the kind of things that would never have happened in the story for Breath of the Wild. These are all current story makings that are occurring and suggesting progress. So that already, to me, bodes well for the story in contrast to Breath of the Wild story, which is mostly in the past. Now, I said there would be flashbacks. I do think there are flashbacks, but I think that's tied more to telling a more rich history of Hyrule and more about the mystery of the origins of Ganondorf and the different going-ons of that.
I think there can be more to flashbacks.
But in a good, exciting way.
Breath of the Wild. Right, exactly. Because in Breath of the Wild, the problem wasn't necessarily that they told things in flashbacks, is that pretty much everything in the flashbacks was just things we already knew, but just like a little more. It was just like we knew all the story beats before you get off the Great Plateau. The king tells you literally everything pretty much, and then what you don't learn from that, you learn from Impa, and that's pretty much it. And then you just get little hints of things here and there throughout the and you get to see more specifics with the memories. But I think with flashbacks in Tears of the Kingdom, there could be things you've never seen before, like entire scenes that explain things that you don't have any context for because they weren't brought up in Breath of the Wild at all, or just told to you in a info dump at the beginning of the game for some reason. So I think even with there being like flashbacks or memories coming back, quote unquote, I think those could be better as well.
I feel like I'm gonna think of how to say this. I feel like flashbacks don't have to be just like memories in Breath of the Wild, where you go, you find it, and then it does a little cinematic. Flashbacks could be something that you experience in this game. You know, they could be moments of gameplay that have cinematics too. It doesn't just have to be a short little bite-sized cinematic.
Have you ever seen them do that in a Zelda game before?
No.
Yeah, it would be something totally new.
It would be something totally new. Just like fuse mechanics, you know? Something totally new. So, like, they're constant, like, I don't know, I feel like in that final trailer, we get a lot of, like, really cool hints and teases. And then one thing that I noticed that I feel like they've been kind of teasing since the beginning, since they very first announced this sequel, is the time. Like, weird, whether it's music playing backwards where it's like Zelda looking up in the sky saying, "You need to find me," but there's no sky islands up there. Whether it's the shot of the destroyed Master Sword and then the shot with the full Master Sword, there's a lot of weird, like, I don't know if it's timelines or past, present, or present and future. I have no idea, but it seems like they're toying a lot with that sort of stuff. So, you know, who knows? Maybe dungeons are a way to experience different moments in time. Who knows? Maybe when you enter the dungeon, you are going, you know, you're going through, you know,
like the Temple of Time in Twilight Princess.
Sure, like the Temple of Time.
That one's actually a really cool dungeon. Like Twilight Princess, like, it's so crazy because the dungeon is like completely gone and in ruins. But if you can find a portal to the past where it's this giant, I don't even know what to call it, but it's this giant like tower, I guess, that you're inside of. What would have been really cool if you could have found a way to look through like the windows and see like an outside Hyrule that was different. That would have been asking for a lot, but it would have been super cool. So, kind of like, like, you know, how in the Wind Waker, when you go under the sea and you can see Hyrule from the perspective of the Wind Waker visuals, that was really cool too.
Like, I don't know. I think about like the Divine Beasts, and you know, they have memories of the champions from the past, and you go and you finish the Divine Beast, and it kind of like sets that spirit free, and you get like the little memory of what happened there. I could totally see a scene of like Link walking up to a dungeon in this game and like putting his hand on the stone, and then it goes into the flashback, and you're playing through the dungeon, but you're playing through like a moment in the story, a very important moment in time. Who knows? It's a random thought. The point is, I could see flashbacks or things from the past being things that you experience, as opposed to just like a bite-sized little.
You know those giant glyphs that we've seen throughout Hyrule, like the giant, like the geoglyphs, the glowing ones that are like, the geoglyphs. Yeah. We don't know what those do. At one point, I was worried that they might be kind of like the memory recalls, like in Breath of the Wild, but bigger and more obvious, so we can find them. Because they were kind of really hard to find in Breath of the Wild, some of them, like to get all of them. Yeah. So I wonder if maybe if the geoglyphs are flashbacks, or maybe not even flashbacks, but just like, you know, tell you more story in some way, in a cool way. And then that's kind of like, but it's easier to find, so that way more people can appreciate the full story in that way, but still be appreciated from an open world gameplay point of view. Like, you know, like in the sense that maybe like they tell different pieces to the history, right? It's the same way how we get the flashbacks and we can watch them in any order we choose. There can maybe pieces of history or just straight up flashbacks that we experience in a whatever order we kind of choose, depending on how we explore, and just maybe they're the geoglyphs. I don't know. Now, I don't know if the geoglyphs are something else altogether.
Sure.
But they're definitely very obvious. They demand your attention. And that's going to be one of the first things I'm going to want to do, is find out what those are. So I'm going to check with the chat real quick, but I would like for you guys to kind of think of 3 things. No, let's simplify it, because we'll each do 2. We'll each do 2 things. Think of 2 things that we're gonna do day 1 of playing Tears of the Kingdom. Like something that you're gonna be like, all right, I don't want to find out what this is, or I'm gonna go and do this.
Oh man!
Like think about that for a moment while I check in with the chat.
Oh God.
Warren B has renewed their membership. Thank you for sticking around, Warren B. Super appreciated. Yeah. Let's see here. Grayson Stewart, he definitely watched the spoilers. Who? As I said, I don't know who we were referring to, because we've all said different things. I did say in the beginning of the live stream, though, I've seen some comments. I'm not 100% sure what's correct or not, but I've seen some comments, and I've seen some small things, but I've tried to avoid the bulk of it, because I'm trying to stay as fresh as I can when I get into the game.
I've seen absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I've seen nothing either. Yeah. I'm too scared.
Yeah, let's see here. WebOpa. By the way, I think the name Tears of the Kingdom is genius too. It sounds like Tears of the Kingdom, Tiers, Skylands, Ground, Caves, awesome. Yeah, so let's kind of speak on that for a moment. I'd like to Well, let's put a pin on that because I did ask you guys to kind of think of like something you guys want to do. Have you guys thought about it yet?
Yes.
Okay, so Brandon, you go first then?
Sure. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I feel like what a lot of people are gonna do, and I feel like the game's kind of probably push me to do this anyways, just because I think this is gonna be one of the first things you're asked to do. I want to know what the shrines replacements are. I want to know what's up with that so bad. So yeah, definitely gonna find one of those and do it. But I'm sure the game's gonna. I'm trying to think of things that the game isn't going to immediately tell me to do. But it's hard to say because like I want to see if there's underwater exploration, but I have a feeling that you need some kind of item later in the game or something that you need to find to do that because it definitely doesn't seem like something you could do just at the beginning of the game at least. I don't know.
We can make a submarine. That'd be fun.
Maybe trying to see if I can get a vehicle to go underwater, or at least try to see if I can see anything down there that kind of indicates that hey, maybe I can go down there eventually.
And if we can't go down there, like I wonder, like let's say they don't create any gameplay where we can go underwater, because you know how there's a lot of things we could do in Breath of the Wild that took advantage of the physics and the abilities, and we did more than intended by the developers.
Right.
Like, what if we find ways to do more than intended in Tears of the Kingdom as well? Like, maybe they don't want us to go underwater, but what if we can like trick the system and use our crafts to we create a submarine and we find it like a makeshift, like we still make a submarine and we go underwater even though Nintendo did not want us to, and we're like, we did it. There's not much under here, but here we are. Like, that would be neat. I mean, actually, like let's say there's an underground, right? What if like we find a way to clip into the water with a makeshift craft, so it's effectively a submarine, and then because it's an underground, we can use that to traverse and then clip into another environment that's underground, and therefore underwater exploration is then valid, even though it would totally be a glitch.
Just through breaking the game.
Yeah, man, I want to break the game day one. That is one of the two things I want to do. I mean, there's actually a lot of things. I could make a whole. That's a video. That's a video. Anyway, yeah, I want to glitch the game day one. I want to do something I am not supposed to do and be like, oh my god, we're just scratching the surface. If you guys are watching like my live streams, like I've done some things. I'm like, oh, that's not possible. We shouldn't do that. Some people are like helping me learn some different tricks. Like this is one trick where you can kind of like fly around while you're holding a bomb in your hand and you're just like zooming around the surface. It's crazy. But
the bomb makes you fly?
Yes.
Huh.
No, like you're holding it, like it hasn't blown up. Like it's crazy. It's weird. It's a weird glitch. There's a lot of glitches. Yeah, so I want to break the game. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Maybe we'll break the game on Friday. We'll play together and be like, all right, so this is what Fuse does. Let's try fusing two islands. And then the game just crashes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think for me, like, I know I've talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast. I want to know if there's dungeons in the game. Like, that's my biggest curiosity.
So day one, you're going to try and get to a dungeon? Or at least confirm its existence?
I want to confirm the existence of a dungeon. That's all I've been praying for.
I'm pretty sure the reviews will confirm that. We'll probably know.
The reviews will confirm it. But
you want to see I'm going to watch reviews?
I probably am.
At least I'm not watching anything.
Maybe one or two. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't.
Other than that, it's like, I don't know. It's hard for me to pick one thing because I know as soon as I get in that world, I'm gonna be like, what's over there? What's over there? What's over there?
Well, just pick one.
It's gonna be like such bad, like ADD.
I got dozens I want to do as well. So like, but just pick one.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I guess like exploring the sky. You know, right off the bat, like checking out the Skylands. That's like completely new territory for us. So checking out the sky stuff. You know, it seems like there's a lot going on up there. There's a lot of mechanics. I want to see what all that stuff has to offer. So I'll probably be spending my early hours in there, you know.
I've said this before, And I from what we see in the preview footage, I suspect I'm gonna have to wait until a late game to really find out. But I'm gonna want to see how high we can go. I'm gonna be like, all right, what's the highest we can go in this game? And again, because early game, you probably don't have a lot of battery power with your crafts and other things. You probably can't go as high as you could. But I'm gonna try. I'm definitely gonna try.
I have a good other one.
All right, go for it.
For my second.
Go.
I've been wanting so bad. We've only seen one glimpse in the final trailer, and it didn't show anything radically different. I mean, we saw Hateno Village with some mushrooms, and that was about it. I want to go to a town, and I want to see what's happening. How are the people going to react? Are they actually concerned about Ganondorf this time? Or are they just going about their lives blissfully ignorant about the calamity?
Purple holes on the floor. I wonder what that's about. Probably shouldn't go down there. Maybe there's
crazy, all these sky islands.
Maybe we can go fishing on the sky islands.
Yeah, I want to see how the world has changed and how the people have reacted.
Okay. Yeah. What was interesting about Breath of the Wild is, like, you go to Hateno, they were sort of sheltered from the calamity because there's a series of mountain ranges between them and, Hyrule Field, where the Guardians and Calamity Ganon are. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, if that's still a thing or if there's other issues going on. We've seen that Kakariko Village has seen some changes from the trailer. Like, there's ruins crashed. They got
decimated from some fallen sky island.
Yeah, so they're definitely dealing with some stuff. I know I said 2 each, but another thing I want to do, I want to see one of those malice holes, and I want to just dive straight into it. Just go.
Yeah.
Maybe even skip the surface and just be like, nope, straight in. And then just be like, oh my god, what is this? And maybe, like, there'll be, like, a giant monster that's, like, in the dark, and I'm like, oh, I can only see his eyes and a couple horns. They're all glowing, and this is terrifying. I need to get out of here.
Oh, dude, that reminds me of something interesting. One of the previewers I watched, they said there was a part of the game where they couldn't talk about it specifically, but they said they ran into an enemy that it didn't matter, like, how many weapons they had on them, there was no way they were going to defeat them. Like, it was an enemy, like, so intimidating, so hard, that they were like, it doesn't matter unless I am truly prepared, that I don't even have a chance. And I was like, that's exciting.
That sounds like it sounds like the Great Plateau Lionel in Master Mode. There's, like, it one-shots you no matter what. You have to die. Like, I did it I know people can do it, but it requires, like, knowing the moveset, practicing, trying dozens upon dozens of times, and then even then some people probably still can't do it. Like, it takes a lot.
Right.
Yeah, so I like that. That sounds good. I want lots of challenge in Tears of the Kingdom for sure.
Yeah. I know this one's kind of like a typical one, but I definitely think it's going to be one of the things that a lot of us do for the first time is fuse experimentation. With weapons and items. Like, we got a little taste of that in that gameplay demo that Nintendo did. I want to know all the different combinations and what they do. People joked about meat arrows and stuff like that. I want to see all the fun combinations and, like, the little quirky benefits that they give in battle. I'm also curious too, like, I don't know if anyone's done, like, an in-depth video on this, but in that trailer, like, there were moments where it kind of looked like, I don't know if this is just for, like, building vehicles, but almost looked like there were areas that had, like, materials that looked like you could build huts or, like, houses or maybe help rebuild Hyrule. I'm curious about that because that would be really cool if you're kind of helping building up the land of Hyrule again, building up these villages and kind of regaining what was lost from the calamity. I don't know, that sounds kind of cool and exciting to me.
Yeah, I feel like at least...
I'm curious about that.
For sure. I feel like in the context of the story, there's definitely going to be an effort to rebuild because that's what they said at the end of Breath of the Wild. And we like you said, we see those different like it looks like they clearly have been working on reconstruction. And No, so the
It
question
looks like
is
there's like building plots too,
exactly
with like signs and like
like
supplies.
literal foundations for houses.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the question is, are those just there so there can conveniently be lots of materials for us to build?
Right.
Or could they also be there because we could eventually turn those into houses?
Right.
Yeah.
I
I have
hope
a
it's
feeling they're
both.
multi-purpose.
Maybe.
Because
Yeah.
I know the reviewers or the previewers seem to think it was for supplies, at least the ones that I listened
Yeah.
to. But I have a feeling there's more to it, and they just weren't told. Because I'm sure you can just take the supplies from there and do whatever you want. And that's
Right.
like a thing you can do. But I'm sure you can actually like build that up to a proper building, or do something with it at least. I'm sure, other than just here's some planks of wood on the ground conveniently. Because they could have done that. They could have just laid planks on the ground if they wanted to. They need to put a whole plot of land with a sign and like
it's very
kind of suggest that something's going to be built there.
Building.
Yeah.
Another thing that they could do that would be kind of cool is that obviously we wouldn't be building it if this were the case, but maybe as you progress through the gameplay, you're hitting like milestones in the game. You notice the world changing around you. Like things are getting built up. Villages are starting to become more grand, and things that were like just foundations are now like shops and whatever. That would be cool too, because you dynamically see the world changing around you.
Yeah, they could tie that to dungeon progression in a non-linear way, just like the amount of dungeons you've done. I mean, they did that for like enemies in Breath of the Wild. When you defeated a divine beast, the enemies would get stronger and such.
It's just really exciting. Like, it's hard to pick things that like I feel like I need to do and have to do, because this game is such a mystery. And like,
it's like everything I do is new.
It's funny because I feel like Nintendo could easily be like, "Hey, the sequel of Breath of the Wild launches yada yada, and returning or is this, and this is some of the new stuff." It's like they haven't gone big on giving that information. It's been like, enjoy this world, play how you want to play, enjoy the new fuse mechanic, and you'll find out the rest when you play it.
Yeah, essentially. I imagine the review embargo is going to be extremely, extremely late for anything that actually details new stuff about the game. There will probably be a review period where people can say like how they feel about the game, but not specific. I doubt they're going to be allowed to talk about dungeons or shrines or the extent of how big the world is or the story at all. I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't allowed to put up actual reviews until like literally when that treehouse goes live that they're doing by the day before the game ships. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, okay, now that we talk about it, now you can talk about it. But that's the latest or the earliest.
I have a question for you guys because I can't remember. I've only watched the Asia Numa gameplay demo. I haven't watched any of the media ones. Okay. Like, I want to go in as blunt. Like, seeing all the Nintendo stuff has been perfect for me, and I'm looking forward to being surprised and mystified by this new game. But I'm trying to remember. There's another ability or two new abilities that we haven't seen yet, right? Or no? Am I wrong? Did they show off all the abilities? Okay, I feel like there is.
So there's a radial selection screen, right? And I believe there's 8 spots. 1 is faded out for Amiibo. 4 others are the 4 abilities that showed during the demonstration: Fuse, Ultra Hand, Recall, and Ascend. So that's 5 of the 8, right? 1 is like a yellow compass, and I think it's just like for directional stuff. And then a 7th one was shown that has like purple hands. Now, apparently, some sites accidentally revealed it when they weren't supposed to. So because it's not officially been said by Nintendo, I don't know if I should say that, because some people maybe consider that spoilers. But the previews that they were allowed to talk, they were allowed to talk about the ability. To some extent, they said that it's something that helps to kind of speed up the crafting process. It kind of complements Ultra Hand in a sense, but they couldn't say exactly how. I speculate that it's like maybe some sort of like duplication or replication, or kind of like remembering the blueprint of something. Something.
Yeah,
Something
I mean
to
they
that
do
effect.
have cooking recipes and stuff now. You can keep in your recipe book, which is super
Yeah,
convenient.
it
So I wouldn't
is
be surprised if there were like blueprints to just make a vehicle you've made before.
something like that.
I
Maybe.
wonder. I wonder.
I lost you.
Other than just like oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been a while since I've played Breath of the Wild in full. I've dabbled here and there recently, but if I remember correctly, you can upgrade a couple of your runic
Yes,
abilities,
you can
right?
upgrade bombs and
Yeah.
stasis.
That's right. I'm curious if that's going to play a part with any of the hand
Yeah.
abilities. If there's going to be any hand upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, well,
I feel like there's potential for that for sure.
yeah,
Recall will probably get longer ability to
Sure.
recall things for.
potentially, yeah.
Or
So
recall multiple objects.
yeah, you were asking about the abilities though, right? So we know that the
Sure.
purple one that I can't say the name of, that we get later into the game. So there are
Okay.
abilities added afterwards, so that's something of an upgrade, right? But not to what you're saying, like upgrading the abilities we have. As a branch play,
Sure.
I do feel like recall they could lengthen the duration of that potentially. But the other interesting thing is that I only told you 7 of the 8. We don't know what the 8th one is.
Oh yeah, what
We
is the
haven't-
eighth one?
We don't know. Maybe it's just blank there
Underwater
forever.
abilities.
Or taking pictures.
Snorkel
That's
hand.
honestly taking pictures is totally not out of the question. But
Yeah,
if
that actually
Amiibo's
sounds-
also on there.
That sounds frustratingly safe.
Yeah.
But it could be another option because
Yeah.
I
Photo
think
mode's always fun though.
yeah. We've seen the footage where Link has like the new Sheikah slate. So
Yeah.
maybe you can take pictures of that.
Yeah, photo mode will probably be an option when you pull up the what did you call it? Zonai slate?
I mean, it was a Sheikah slate.
Is it Sheikah still?
It looks like a Sheikah slate, so
Just upgrade the Sheikah slate, I guess.
there's still Sheikah technology in the game. It's just been repurposed.
True.
So
It's also much more limited.
from what we've seen, at least.
Yeah, from what we've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. There was something in the chat I want to get to. Johnny Hernandez is saying Jeff Grubb said that Tears of the Kingdom will use AMD Fidelity FSR at launch.
I mean,
Good.
what type?
Good. I mean, I hope it's the kind that makes a difference.
That's not very specific. Do they have a link to wait? Who they say they said Jeff Grubb
Apparently, Jeff Grubb. We'll have to look into that.
on Twitter?
Yeah. I don't know. If you could say where he said that, we could look into it later. There was something else that was said that I want to get to. Let's see. Johnny Hernandez earlier actually said a rumor saying Nintendo will not do a Nintendo Direct in June. So the rumor that's saying Nintendo will not do a Nintendo Direct in June, that is actually coming from a pretty I don't know if I would call it a rumor, but it is from there is a person who has great credibility that said something that people could perceive in that way. This is coming from Andy Robinson. Andy Robinson said, let me see here. I'm looking up his tweets from today. He said Andres Restart should shut up. Okay. All right. Have a good day. All right. Bye. I won't link your tweets anymore. No, I'm just kidding. Let's see here. He said something. I could just paraphrase, but I'm trying to look for the actual quote. I saw it. Today's May 8th. Maybe it was a reply, which is why I'm not seeing it under his tweets. That's probably what it is. Oh, no, I found it. It was 14 hours ago. Okay, so Andy Robinson said, I also heard a Sony showcase is happening in the usual late May, early June window with Konami stuff included. He then says, I'm not expecting Nintendo to do anything. So, firstly, he's just saying he's not expecting. Now, what that means, what I think that means is that he personally has not heard of any plans for Nintendo to do anything around the same time. But here's the thing. Late May, early June isn't necessarily the window we want them to do something. I think because Nintendo is not attending E3, one, they announced that they wouldn't be, but also two, because it was canceled. What that sort of positions Nintendo to do is to kind of do the direct when they so choose to. They're not beholden to the E3 timing anymore. So they could do it the second week of June, the third week of June, the end of June, or perhaps early July. And maybe it isn't a direct. Maybe it's not. But I'll tell you this. I would be shocked if there is not a major series of news that comes soon. Because Nintendo has already confirmed that they will be attending Gamescom this August. The last time they attended Gamescom was in 2019 with a series of new games to demonstrate, such as Link's Awakening, Luigi's Mansion, Astral Chain, and they also had the Switch Lite that was recently announced on display as well. Come August, there will be no new Nintendo games that are slated, at least as of what we know today. And I believe what that means is that there will be a series of announcements of games that are coming. They will be on demonstration in August. In other words, before August, those announcements will be made. They're going to happen after Tears of the Kingdom comes out. I think Tears of the Kingdom is going to be probably the bulk of the May stuff. Nintendo could potentially tweet, do some social media drops. How Nintendo gives us the information, I would like to think it's still going to be a direct. And I think some people are going to make the argument, well, last year Nintendo didn't do a full-scale direct either. You're right, they didn't, but there's a big difference between this year and last year. Last year, we knew about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Last year, we knew about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Last year, we knew about Splatoon 3, Bayonetta 3, Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Those are all big games that we knew were coming in the second half of the year. This time, we don't know about any of that. So there's a complete mystery. They can't really afford to go a summer without having a major direct. Well, at least a series of announcements. Doesn't have to be a direct per se, but there needs to be a series of announcements, or else Nintendo's basically saying, hey, there's just not going to be anything in the second half of the year. And I don't believe that. So, especially because they're attending Gamescom, I just don't see that. So, I think there's going to be something.
Yeah, I think early July makes a lot of sense. Nintendo doesn't like to do their stuff in the middle of everyone else's. They don't want their messaging to get lost in the shuffle of Microsoft and Sony and Summer Games Festival. When during E3 times, they'd always go do their presentation last. They like to have the last word. So I could see end of June, early July. But I agree with you. I think we're going to get something. I think we're going to get some slew of announcements. Obviously not as big as Tears of the Kingdom, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get solid games. Like you mentioned earlier, Pikmin 4 is awesome. That's going to be an awesome game coming out this year, post Breath of the Wild. Or post Tears of the Kingdom, sorry.
Breath of the Wild 2. Yeah. So I see we have about 200 people watching and a little bit over 100 likes. If we could get to 200 likes, that would be amazing, guys. So if you're watching, please like, and if you're new here and you enjoy this content, if you enjoy Nintendo content, please subscribe. But yeah, let's continue on with the chat here. I am gonna.
Can I just make a comment? Because I was typing in the chat trying to get people to give me a source on the the AMD Fidelity FSR being in Tears of the Kingdom.
Sure.
Did he confirm the source? It doesn't really matter what the source is because it's just Fidelity. It's just the version 1, which essentially means it's basically non-existent and doesn't do anything. They've been implementing FSR1 technically into their titles for a while, but that doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't seem to actually be active in any of the games that they have it implemented in or do anything significant as far as we can tell. And even if it was active, it's not like a game-changing feature, so it's not really important. Just wanted to let people know.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about FSR this, and oftentimes they were like, "Oh, it's got FSR. It means it looks better." But
FSR1 specifically, FSR2 is an actual like upscaling technique, kind of like DLSS, more like what there is in Xenoblade 3, because it's not AI based. It's a little bit different though, but it's essentially just a resolution upscaler. It does make the games look significantly higher resolution. FSR1, however,
what does it do?
It doesn't. I mean, I could explain it, but
Sean Castlesinger is saying it fixes the lag. Is Sean, are you referring to FSR1 or referring to something else? Is that maybe
FSR1
what
doesn't have anything to do with lag?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't help out in any way.
No, literally has nothing to do with that, as far as I know. Not an expert on FSR1, but from anything I understand about the technique, it literally has nothing to do with input latency at all.
So I can't
it's
really.
More to do with how the image is scaled. It just makes the output image cleaner.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you scale, because the game's not gonna hit native 1080p, right? It's gonna be like dynamic resolution. So it's just kind of a way to make sure that output of whatever that resolution is as sharp and clean as possible. So it can make games look a little bit sharper, a little bit cleaner, a little bit less blurry. But as far as we can tell in all the games they've implemented so far, it's basically something you wouldn't even know is on if they didn't say it was.
Got it. What I wanted to say was I forgot. I forgot. I don't remember what I was gonna say, but it was okay. I remember now. So what I was gonna say is that from the previews, looking at the preview footage, I felt the game looked substantially better than what we saw in the gameplay demonstration. And I'll go as far as to say that the preview footage pretty much reflected what we've seen of the trailers. And what I've seen of the trailers is that looks like a pretty damn good Switch game.
Screenshots definitely look a lot cleaner too.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I feel like the lighting looks better. I feel like the colors look a little bit better. I don't think it's like a dramatic change, obviously, but I think it does look cleaner and better than Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Something I've noted. I think there's more detailed textures. Like I did a comparison of like one of the mountainsides in Kakariko Village. And
that was a big difference.
You saw that, like it was.
Oh yeah, it was night and day.
Yeah, it was substantial. So I feel like the textures are a little bit more detailed. I can't confirm with 100% certainty, but it does kind of feel like the lighting is better, if not better, at least more smartly done. Like there's a lot more brighter places, which inherently just looks nicer. Light kind of reveals more.
Yeah.
And there's a lot. It feels like there's just more in the environment. The environment's a little bit more denser. So there's more going on. And I kind of feel like
polygons in the environment for sure.
Yeah,
like a ton more, especially in any like the sculpted objects. Like even I was just looking on Twitter. Like Nintendo released a screenshot from one of their accounts, and it was just like some sculpted statues like in one of the Skylands, and I was like, man. There's a lot of polygonal detail in these things, whereas a lot of these detail in Breath of the Wild is just kind of like baked into the texture. They actually use a lot more real polygons in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, it feels better, and there's also the draw distance, right? Like we're going to be high up, and we can see super far down.
Yeah, draw distance is great.
Yeah,
really impressive, actually.
Yeah,
super. Yeah.
And yeah, so I think overall the game is it's doing a lot more. It may not immediately look better, but when you factor in everything that's in the environment, all the different things going on, and that it still somehow looks a little bit better while doing a lot more, I think that does say a lot.
I mean, we'll get a better idea when the game launches, and we can stop looking at compressed footage of wildly different builds of the game. So we'll get the final game in the finished state, non-compressed, and we can do the comparisons. Because I mean, at this point, it's hard to even tell if what resolution the game's running at all the time. Because there's so much compression. It's hard to tell if there's even what type of anti-aliasing is being used. If they're using that TAA upscaling that they do in Xenoblade to make the resolution look higher and get rid of the aliasing, that game looks like a significantly better resolution than it actually is. That I think it hits 540p or something in docked mode. That game looks like a 900p to 1080p game most of the time. That looks fantastic. So if they're doing that with Breath of the Wild, I think we could see significantly better, or Tears of the Kingdom, I mean, then we could see significantly better image quality than Breath of the Wild. So there's still rooms where we haven't really seen the game in a good enough state to say definitively how much better it looks. We need that source file content.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Also, I feel like the sky stuff adds a unique kind of artistic direction to a world we've already seen, all the gold trees. So some of it might just be stylization that's just really pretty that we're not used to seeing in that world. But I don't know. Yes, I want the game to look and run better than Breath of the Wild, but that's definitely lower tier for me on the things that I'm hoping for and excited for.
Yeah, I think they could have gone a lot harder into the graphics if they didn't do so much with the game.
Sure.
It's wild to me, the Sky Islands in general. I mentioned this very briefly a couple weeks ago, but a lot of open world games are very flat, and there's a lot of space in between the big high points, and that's just due to how games render. It's very hard to load you can't obviously load an entire world's assets in at once. And if you have something like the sky where you have completely different assets, the trees are different, the grass is different, everything's different. And then you also need to load the ground that has a completely different assets. That just takes a lot of memory. And the fact that they can have it where you can see the sky islands continuously and you can see the ground and it's all seamless. You can travel between the ground, the sky, the underground as quick as you want, even faster now than ever before with vehicles. It's just crazy that they can get that to run on the Switch and keep that all in memory. Their engine must be absolutely insane. I'm sure Monolith Soft helped them a ton because the stuff they do with Xenoblade is also ridiculously impressive.
Yeah. And masters Nintendo are masters at their own hardware and developing for it. So it's lots of times you'll see outings from third parties and you're oof, and then you see what Nintendo's able to do and you're wow. No,
they're masters of optimization.
They know their stuff. Yeah.
They're masters of optimization not only in graphics, but I mean, we've been saying it for so long. The Wii U generation was a big one where masters of compression.
Oh yeah.
A lot of developers this game's only going to be 16 18 gigabytes,
something like that. Yeah,
if this had come from another developer, it'd probably be 40 50. Nintendo's so smart with the way that they use their assets. They don't keep a bunch of just randomly oversized assets or duplicate assets or they're very smart about it, and they compress their assets a lot in a way that the game can still run, which is also impressive because compressing assets means you then have to decompress those assets at runtime, which is a CPU concern. So it's all around very technically impressive. Even the game doesn't look leaps and bounds. I think it does look, if you look in the right places, it does look significantly better than Breath of the Wild. But even though it's not a complete overhaul or game changer graphically, it's still very impressive what they're able to do.
Right.
There's also a lot more variety with the environments now, and I think that's going to say a lot too, because just variety is just nice to see, right? It's more appealing to the eye.
Oh yeah.
So I think overall the game is just going to be a nicer, more visually pleasing experience, for a number of reasons, as Brandon brought up. But so we're in the last chunk of the podcast, right? As I said, I'm gonna be streaming every day this week. So I'm not going to do a 4-hour podcast. Also, it's the playoffs. So I want to see the end of the Heat game. But so we're in the last 20-ish minutes. So guys in the chat, I want to kind of just focus on questions. But Cameron, Brandon, if there's like one more thing you want to bring up before we close out, let me know.
I don't think I have anything specific.
Okay. I mean, the thing is, with all the questions in the chat, I'm sure there'll be some great stuff. But is there something you want to bring up, Cameron?
Yeah, like real quick, it's something that I'm very excited about with this game. I'd love to hear what you guys are expecting or thinking story-wise. You know, we haven't talked much about story, but like, do you guys have any hopes or expectations for that, or any hopes at least for like Ganondorf and stuff? The big baddie's back.
Yeah, I mean, well, we know he's back, right? Confirmed. Yeah. But what I want to see a rivalry built up between Link and Ganondorf.
Thank you. I love that. Love that, by the way.
Yeah, like one of the reasons why Ocarina of Time takes such a special place in my heart, because I feel like the pacing of the game is masterful. And part of that comes down to, I mean, how it starts. I mean, there's so much. The storytelling in that game, I think, is really great, and from an atmospheric perspective, which is one of the reasons why if they were to remake that for like modern day visual standards, my gosh, how impressive that would be. But like, they build up this rivalry between Link and Ganondorf. They tell this history of Ganondorf. You learn like something of Link, right? Like his mother left him and all that stuff. And they meet each other several times throughout the story. And there's interactions they have, but it all culminates into the final battle. And that final battle has several twists and turns, but it's all epic. It's all high stakes. In contrast to Breath of the Wild, it was just a force of nature, which was cool. But when we got into underground, like not underground, but under Hyrule Castle, there was a battle there, and that was cool. But there wasn't a personality there. There wasn't a history there. Not like a personal history there. What I meant to say. Yeah. And then the final battle was a victory lap. The developers wanted to do a victory lap, which to me was personally disappointing because I like final epic climactic battles, and that final fight wasn't that for me.
Yeah.
I have hope that Tears of the Kingdom goes in a different direction with the final battle. And seeing what they've done for Ganondorf and seeing how dark they've made him and how gruesome they've made him and the way he's being depicted as being so much more powerful gives me an optimism that not only is the game going to be more challenging, which to me is a good thing, and I'm sure there'll be ways for it to still be beatable for other people the same way Breath of the Wild was, but there'll be that challenge there if you seek it. But that final ending is going to have that like they're going to build up this relationship throughout the game, and then it's going to have that climax that we wanted. It's going to, I think the climax is going to rival what maybe the best. It may have the best climax. We'll see, but that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
I second that completely. I mean, that was one of my biggest complaints with Breath of the Wild is like having that personal, that personal villain. It was just a storm. Like Ocarina of Time, so like it's so great that like you have your first encounter with him. You see him in the window, and then you're too late, and he comes storming through with Zelda's escaping from him, and he knocks you down. Then you're going to the different dungeons and temples, but he was there before you and cause havoc. Like he is a constant in that story, and even Wind Waker as well. Whereas like he's kidnapped your sister and stuff, and you fail at getting to him a couple times, and you have a really personal final battle with him. Twilight Princess is a little bit different because he was kind of like a special reveal later in the game. But I think having that villain who's kind of like thwarting your plans and messing things up and causing problems for you, developing that personal anger and hatred towards the villain, I think is a really good thing, and I really want that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's probably the biggest one. But to not say the same thing as Andres, another big one for me, this is, I guess, you could debate whether this is story or not, but for me, this is story. Is like, I think, well, it depends on how you do it, but I hope that the side quests and the characters that you meet along the way, like, add to the story and add to the lore. Like, I want, like, Majora's Mask level side quests.
I'd love that,
like, tons of lore to them, tons of things you need to do to get the side quest, like actual quests, not just like, oh, go find 20 jelly beans by the river, please. Like, go get some frogs or some uh, lucky charms. I don't know, like some kind of fetch quest. I want like actual quests. It'd be cool if they even had like whole things where they're like, a villager's talking about like a special boss that's like super hard, and then they like lead you down a place, and then you encounter like a really hard fight that you can only do like during that side quest.
So maybe kind of like
epic.
How they talk about. If I remember correctly, I think when you're doing it's just a part of the main quest, but it didn't happen in the context of a dungeon. Like there was like the Zora's Domain quest that led to the dungeon, and I think they made mention that there was a threat in the mountains, which ended up being the first planned Lionel interaction. Like maybe something like that, but in this case it would be a side quest, but a big one. It's like, hey, there's a monster terrorizing the shoreline. We have a sister village over there or something, right? Like can you check it out? And then you run into it and you see there's like a fat Gleeok just like terrorizing everything. That would be cool.
Right. That would be really cool.
Or maybe not even, maybe something else we haven't seen but yet at all. I mean, pretty cool.
But I want the NPCs to be aware of the situation and actively like. I mean, we can tell that they already are. They're in battles fighting like alongside Link in several of the shots in the latest trailer. So at least to some extent, they definitely realize that something's going on, and they're active. They're active in the story as well, which gives me hope for some
combating
some
against the upheaval.
actually active.
Yeah. They're definitely gonna have more interesting character interactions. It looks like, especially. I mean, we've seen that some of the companion characters, like Sidon and Tulin, for a little bit. Like we've seen them. Like there's actually like they've worked on some of the AI for them, and they kind of follow along with you, which is really cool. It's kind of like them taking a cue from other modern day games and implementing it into the Zelda series. So yeah, I wonder if we'll see a few more of those in Tears of the Kingdom.
I'm really excited to see those characters again too. Like Breath of the Wild, you had your original champions, but they're all dead. So like those like memories with them, like they're cool to watch, but like they don't really hit you because you didn't get to spend time and grow with those characters. So we know Sidon. We've seen and spent time with some of these characters before. So whatever story beats happen with them, it's gonna feel a lot more personal. It's gonna hit harder than whatever happens.
I feel like Sidon is a total bro. Like he's like
He's such a bro.
So like if something happens to him, you're gonna be like heartbroken.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
I also hope real quick with Ganondorf. I hope he's crafty and clever and highly intelligent. I hope he's not just the bad guy. Like I want to see him outsmarting. I want to see like crazy plot plan, whatever. Like I love that in Ocarina of Time. Obviously, it's a little bit more basic storytelling, but I'd love to see them tell, in a more modern Zelda, a really witty, crafty Ganondorf who's outsmarting you at every turn and stuff and besting you up until the final confrontation when you finally outsmart and best him.
Yeah, that. Like, what are we gonna do with the Master Sword? Like,
sure.
Yeah, there's a lot. But let's get in with the chat. Let's wrap things up. We'll do some Q&A for a little bit. So let me see if I can scroll up a little bit. Let's see. How far back am I gonna go? I think this is good enough. Okay. All right. So Brick_SPL. Miyamoto asked, "What's next after the Mario movie for Mario?" And all he said was, "Look forward to future directs," which is something to think about. Yeah, I remember talking about this, and I think this does mean that the next direct, whenever we do get that direct, will have a Mario announcement. I know some people have said that was just kind of like a very like basic answer, but I don't really agree, because he could have just said we're always working on Mario. But instead he pointed towards the direct, and keep in mind this was from a Variety interview. That's the company that's a mainstream outlet reaching a broader audience that doesn't necessarily watch directs. So Miyamoto talking about Direct, saying, hey, look, if you're excited about the Mario movie, look forward to potential Mario announcements in future Directs. I think that does imply or hint that there is something to come. That's my take on that. Yeah, I mean, I think the next Direct is going to have a Mario announcement. I mean, they should have a Mario game to take advantage of the popularity of the Mario movie. There's so much money on the table there. So I think that's happening. The question is that going to line up with the next 3D Mario and a next system, or is it just going to line up with like maybe a side Mario game, which still might be really cool? We'll see. And now, of course, there's the other possibility is I'm just wrong, and that there isn't a Direct, or if there is a Direct, there's no Mario. But I feel pretty good in saying that I think that there could be another Mario, but we'll see.
I'm gonna be honest. I haven't been listening to a thing you've been saying because I've been reading more comments about FSR and getting not annoyed, but just like it's kind of frustrated, guys. It's not a. If it is FSR1, it's not a custom version of FSR1.
The problem is that most people don't understand that. Like most YouTubers they'll talk about FSR, and almost every YouTuber out there talks about FSR. Everyone, and it's got FSR, it means it looks better. Like almost every single one.
Yeah, I'm just saying. For a fact, FSR1 does not work that way. You can't lower the resolution and then get a better looking output that's actually going to look like any more of a higher resolution with FSR1. It's not possible, doesn't happen. You might as well say you could jump to the moon. It's impossible. Now, if they're using FSR2, which is not what that was said, then they could be doing that. I kind of would be surprised if they're using FSR2 and not just using the same, because I mean Monosoft's also working this game, so why wouldn't they just use the same upscaling?
Yeah, Monosoft does something else that isn't FSR, right? It's just comparable.
Yeah, it's a different way of doing a similar thing. It's adding more information to a lower resolution to make it look like a higher resolution. FSR1 does not do anything of the sort. Doesn't add any new information. You're not getting any more information in those pixels. You're just getting slightly cleaner looking pixels.
So it does help. Kind of.
The amount, I cannot understate how little it helps. Or overstate.
So you're telling me it helps a really little bit.
Yes. Yes? I think yes.
Yes, but a really little tiny bit. So much so, you might mistake the difference.
Yes.
Okay.
Just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
Again.
By the way, I don't even remember what I was talking about. I don't know.
Mario movie and a Direct and more.
Oh, yeah.
Mario game.
Yeah, I think there's a Mario game getting it announced in the next Direct. That's basically
I think it lines up. If it's a 3D Mario, I think it's more likely something that lines up with the next console. If it's a 2D Mario, I think that one sounds sound for a base Switch.
Yeah. Jean-Carl added me. I mean, yeah, you're right. Jean-Carl added me. Volumetric clouds, seamless transition between sky and surface, impressive draw distance.
Now I have to say another thing. Guys, you keep making me have to clarify. There's no volumetric clouds in this game. It's not a feature of the game. It uses a very, very neat implementation of just essentially, I don't know if you would call it cards,
does
but it's essentially
3,
just layered textures over and over again.
Does Xenoblade 2 have volumetric clouds?
Yes.
Those clouds,
not the same technique.
The clouds in Xenoblade 2 are off the chain. They're better than the clouds in Xenoblade 3.
Those are very impressive.
But
yes, because they serve a more gameplay purpose.
I mean, Xenoblade 2, the whole game is the clouds. So
Xenoblade
3, they're just a background.
It's a very big part of the game. The volumetric clouds are extremely hard to render, especially if you need to see through them, which is part of why they run so well in Xenoblade 2. Is you barely need to. They're pretty dense. They're barely translucent at all. Actual volumetric clouds would be ridiculously hard to render. It's a reason that infamous DF quote, which was taken highly out of context of the game being too big, quote unquote, for Switch, if it had volumetric clouds, yeah, you might say it's too big for Switch because it would not run very well. It uses a very good technique for the texture-based clouds they're using. I'm not sure if that's exactly the wording you would say, but essentially they just use images layered on top of each other with very smart use of lighting those images in order to make them look 3D. But I mean, you can tell when they fall through the clouds, if you look closely, you can see the textures rotating to stay aligned with the camera angle. It's not real volumetric clouds. That would be insanely impressive if it was, though.
But the game
even for
still
PS4,
looks good.
that'd be pretty impressive.
Game still
because
looks
that's
good.
literally like, to put that into perspective, a big feature for the PS5 exclusive DLC for Horizon Forbidden West is real volumetric clouds, and that's on the PS5. That's like we couldn't do this on the PS4. It has to be on the PS5 kind of thing. So
okay,
don't expect that from Tears of the Kingdom.
Okay. Abel, the Weekend Tesfaye. I hope I got your name pronounced correctly. No spoilers. I played through the whole game. I've heard people saying it's far and away more difficult than Breath of the Wild, and almost Dark Souls level difficulty, and that is not the case. I mean, everyone's gonna have a different interpretation of how difficult or challenging a game is. I
thought Breath of the Wild was really challenging at the beginning.
Yes. I think people forget how challenging Breath of the Wild was because you've been playing it for so many years. You learn, you get better, and as you progress, as you alluded to, Brandon, by saying early on, later into the game, it becomes easier. So we'll see, but. I trust that Tears of the Kingdom is going to have a healthy amount of challenge, because Breath of the Wild had a healthy amount of challenge already. I had no issues with the challenge in Breath of the Wild. My only critique in terms of the challenge on Breath of the Wild is just the ending. I just didn't like the final boss choice in terms of difficulty. That's it, really. Because Breath of the Wild had the extremely hard bosses that were optional. And even like the main bosses were still challenging depending on how you handled it. If Tears of the Kingdom wants to ramp that up a little bit, which I think is implied, given that it's both a sequel and more of the darker sort of, like take it is. That's not guaranteed, but it may be. I feel that would be good. And if they do pace the ending in a way that's more challenging, that maybe that's something that they could work on. Breath of the Wild, like early on, it's challenging, but it becomes easy as you power up. If they could find a way to pace the game, find a better way to pace the game to where it feels challenging as you continue onwards, that would be great. So we'll see. WebOpa, in Germany, the retail price of Tears of the Kingdom dropped by $10. Well, that's great.
Oh.
Yeah.
And where?
In Germany.
Germany.
So they're selling for 60 then?
I don't know.
What is the German currency? It's not dollars, is it?
Is it euros?
I don't know. Because depending on conversion, even if it's 10, whatever euros, pounds, whatever it is, less, it may still be $70 US.
Yeah. I'll just continue on the chat here because we're running out of time. WebOpa, not a question, more an excited comment. I can't wait how Link is going to interact with other characters and NPCs. We saw Sidon, Riju, we saw NPC in a fight and NPCs on a wagon. Yeah, this game's going to be a battle. Like, they are suggesting this is going to be an ongoing battle. Link is the last defense.
More than a battle, it's going to be a war.
Right, Link is the pivotal piece to this ongoing war between the forces of evil led by the Demon King Ganondorf and the vestiges of the kingdom led by Link. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's build
an army.
Yeah. Man, my chat is so confusing. I thought I read earlier messages and they were later messages. It's like jumping back and forth. Cool. A longer day-night cycles would be cool. I didn't really have a problem with the day-night cycle in Breath of the Wild, but wouldn't be upset if it was longer either, as long as there's ways to kind of change the time when we need it. Let's see here. Man, what is wrong with my chat? Let's see. Jalen Hurts Cannon. What would be a disappointing Metacritic score for you guys? Okay, I saw this
below a 90.
Anything below a 97.
Honestly, the amount I care about Metacritic scores is so low. It'd have to be a really low score for me to actually be like, hey, wait, hold on.
So
this does not deserve this score.
I think regardless of how the game reviews, I know I'm gonna enjoy this game. Like, I'm not worried.
I care about Metacritic scores as much as I care about the Game Awards winners. Like, not much.
I care about the Metacritic a little bit more than the Game Awards, because the Game Awards is like extremely biased, and while Metacritic is also inherently biased, but it's by a larger sum of people, so it feels more fair from different sites.
That's fair.
So I do care more about Metacritic than the Game Awards, but it is kind of that energy. It's more of like fanboy victory lap, like, yeah, my game is amazing, but I was gonna buy it regardless. If the game was an 8 out of 10, I would still buy it and probably enjoy it a lot. So.
I mean, I like to think, like, imagine if the next Zelda was just a modern version of Ocarina of Time. It wasn't the Breath of the Wild formula.
Still be hyped.
I'd be like, that game could possibly be a personal 10 for me, but it might not review anywhere near Breath of the Wild, because it'd be like, they went backwards when Breath of the Wild had such a phenomenal open air. But that game might still be a 10 for me as a Zelda fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. I feel like for me to be like upset of the reviews, it would have to be in the low 80s or into the 70s. Otherwise, like, whatever about the Metascore, I'm probably gonna love it more than the people who aren't hardcore Zelda, you know?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what the Metacritic score ends up being, I'll get over it pretty quick. But
sure.
But I was gonna say, unless people start attacking me for saying, "Hey, your game sucks. How dare you talk about it for years?" Then it'll torment me for a while, because I'll see the comments, but eventually I'll just ignore it. Otherwise, I'll say that I'll still be a little disappointed if it's anything under a 97. Just because I want the game to match Breath of the Wild or surpass it. I mean, I could live with a 96. All right, so I'll say if it's below a 96, I'll be slightly disappointed, but only slightly. Like, I'll get over it, because 96 is still probably a game of the year. I mean, technically, I think Metroid Prime Remastered is the current highest rated game on Metacritic for the year across all platforms, last I checked. Maybe that's changed recently, but that's at a 94.
Is that at 93?
It's at a 94. I mean, yeah, last I checked it was 94. It was at 95 for a while, but it dipped down to 94. So that's really good. Now, Prime Remastered will not get Game of the Year because the Game Award sucks. But that's why. It's because it's a remaster. That's the actual reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a 94. So, yeah, that 96, anything lower than 96, I'll be slightly disappointed, but I'll get over it real quick, and I'm gonna enjoy the game regardless of what it ends up being. Josh Coleman, I predict reviews saying Nintendo's magnum opus. That's exciting. Could be.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we've pretty much reached the end of the show. Guys, I'll offer the last 30 to 60 seconds for you guys to say anything, last things. But Cameron, Brandon, any final thoughts?
Just thanks for having me on again. It's been fun. I am so unbelievably excited for this game. I'm excited for everyone listening and watching, and for you guys to we're all going to be in the same place Friday, just losing ourselves in Hyrule again.
Do you want to come on next Monday? Do you have time to come on next Monday?
Let me double check my work schedule. I'd absolutely love to join again.
I just think it's cool because since we talked about it right before, to also have you on to talk about it right after too. So if you can, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, let me check my schedule. That'll be amazing.
Yeah, and guys, make sure to subscribe to Cameron's YouTube channel. By the way, I know you haven't been as active lately, but you put out a reaction video not that long ago.
Yeah, not that long ago. Yeah, but I'm having computer issues and stuff. I recently moved and stuff, but yeah, there's some good content. Even cycling through some of my old stuff's fun, and I'll definitely have some new stuff. Especially, I'll be putting out my impressions of Tears of the Kingdom for sure. So
Nice.
Cool. Brandon, do you have any obscenities to express?
The only thing I want to express is how much I am holding myself back responding to the people in the comments talking about different technical things.
Brandon, be nice.
I don't want to call anybody out, but I saw some that made me cringe a bit inside. Kind of makes me want to start a whole channel just talking about technical stuff in Nintendo, because the amount of people who follow Nintendo and have basically no clue what they're talking about but talk anyways it gets irritating. Not that everybody in the comments is just spouting absolute nonsense, but there were some things that I wanted to call out, some inaccuracies.
Just be nice, man. Don't be rude. I didn't see what you said, but please don't be rude. I'm not saying you were. I don't know.
I would never.
Okay.
Me? No, too nice.
Okay, good. I hope you're being serious. Taker 610 with the guys. If Brandon's being mean, you tell me. You let me know.
Everybody in the comments.
You let me know. I'm going to have to put him on timeout.
Oh God.
Yeah, we're good. Taker 610 with the super chat. Thank you for that super chat, buddy. Taker says, "Will the caves be interconnected region to region?" Well, I don't know the answer to that, but we did see, like, on the mini map in the gameplay demonstration that there is like a symbol for what appear to be caves, so there may be a decent amount of them. I mean, we've seen several throughout the footage. If they're interconnected, I mean, I don't know how big they are. I don't know if that ties into the underground in any way. I kind of feel like they would. But I do feel like they probably did a lot to make this game feel big. I think this game is gonna feel bigger than Breath of the Wild, which is gonna be pretty special.
Bigger and more dense with things to do.
Denser, yeah. One cool thing from the preview footage, they showed like a fort of bokoblins that had one of the boss moblins on there too, and that like you compare that to like the forts in Breath of the Wild, they were basically just like campfires with sticks, right? Like this was like an actual, like it had
like small tree house.
Against the horn usually.
Yeah, like this one was like an actual like fort. Like there was like spikes sticking out on all sides, some structures. Like there was more going on there. So yeah, I have an optimism that this game's gonna feel pretty dense. Yeah.
Awesome.
Luke Weaver, how many hours do you think 100% completion will take? That's gonna depend on the person. Since we're talking about 100%, we've seen there are Korok seeds in this game, so
it's gonna be
I don't know.
Hundreds of hours.
400 or 500 hours if you're really accurate. I don't know. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, everyone leave your predictions for what you get if you collect all the Korok seeds in the comments for us.
Oh man,
I want to hear what
no guides
get this time. They could do the ultimate troll where you just get golden poop again. Like it's the same thing.
Golden turds.
I think the problem of giving a really cool reward for getting all the Korok seeds is that people will hear about said cool reward, but it'll feel impossible for most people to do, and so they can never get the reward. So I feel like you can't give a really good reward unless the Korok seeds are feasible.
I don't think Nintendo really wanted people to do all
I don't think so either.
I think it was a bad reward intentionally so that you wouldn't feel the need to do it.
Right,
because it wasn't part of the design of the game. It's just something you're supposed to do as you go along and you find it. It's not really something they wanted to track down, do all of.
I mean, after a certain point, it stops.
It's going to be the ultimate fusion.
Maybe. All I was gonna say is that after a certain point, the Korok seeds stop improving your inventory. So like you don't need to get them all.
Yeah.
So We'll see. We'll see. I'm sure it'll be a joke. I bet it'll be a joke though that people will appreciate in some way when it happens, and most of us will just wait until that one crazy person does it, and we'll just see it on Twitter and be like, "Oh, there it is. That's what it is."
I don't know.
Now we know.
It's gonna be the golden poop, and people are gonna fuse it to a stick. That's gonna be like the special thing.
I mean,
and it breaks in one hit.
Oh god, it's just even worse than a normal stick.
Bro, what if you fuse it? Yeah, that. Okay, I now kind of understand the fusion thing. Okay, that's funny. All right, that's cool. My name's Cinema. How many of you have it pre-ordered or plan to go to the midnight launch? I downloaded it digitally. You can see it right there. Just because I want to be able to play it as early as legally possible. So I'm ready to go.
I don't know if I'm gonna pre-order it or not.
Yeah, I did the vouchers, so I saved $30. So like if you do the vouchers, right, it's $100 to do the vouchers. But if you plan on buying more Nintendo games in the future, anyways, it's a good deal. So I also pre-ordered Pikmin 4. So that Pikmin 4 is a $60 game. Tears of the Kingdom is a $70 game. So together they would cost $130, but the vouchers cost $100. So with the vouchers I get both. So I saved $30 that way. So yes, I have to give up not having the physical version, but I'll live. I'll buy Amiibo. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Or I'll just buy a copy for my dad or something. It's like, hey, look, here you go. Happy Father's Day. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I think we're pretty much at the end here, guys. Okay, a couple. All right, you guys are trying to make me miss the Heat game. How dare you? All right, so these are gonna be quick. Charles Shadell. Oh wait, the golden poop give infinite durability to the weapon of choice. That's a reward that I think would actually be kind of worth it. And wouldn't be so great a reward that people would be upset about not getting to it. So maybe I think you might be onto something. Taker610 with another super chat. Thank you, buddy. Will there be Eventide like Sky Island? I think they gotta have something like that. So I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. That makes sense because that was such a special moment in Breath of the Wild. They should maybe have a few moments like that where they kind of strip you of your abilities and make you rethink the process. So I say yes. Samuel with another super chat as well. Predictions. Do you think Nintendo announces Switch 2 next month? Has to be yes or no.
No.
How dare you?
No.
How dare you force me to say yes or no? I'm gonna say no because it's happening in July. All right. Bye. I don't know. I'm saying no, but that's only because you're only giving me two choices. So I
honestly do think there's a possibility it could be like July or August, but not June. I'm also not like super.
Yeah.
Right. I'm also not super even confident on it happening this year at all. So yeah. But definitely I don't think it's gonna happen next month. They might do a direct and announce more games next month, but I don't think they're gonna talk about the Switch 2. I also don't think they're gonna talk about the Switch 2 in a direct, by the way. I think it's gonna be separate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But I'll be streaming tomorrow. Maybe we're for sure doing a podcast again on Monday to talk about our post thoughts, or our initial impressions, because we're talking about Tears of the Kingdom for a long time. Cameron may or may not join us. Brandon will probably be here unless he goes to jail.
Oh God!
Hopefully,
what a crime have I committed?
Being mean to everyone in the chat. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I was so mean, I remember.
Yeah.
I forgot. It slipped my mind.
Yes. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching. If you could like the stream, get us to a higher number. And if you're new here, subscribe. But we'll see you soon. The hype is real. It's coming. Friday, friends. All right. Bye.
Peace.
All right. Where's the Heat game at?